Hey there, all you beautiful souls. I hope your day has been absolutely fantastic. Welcome back to the channel, it's always a pleasure to see you here. Today, we've got another exciting what-if scenario for all the Naruto fans out there. What if Naruto was raised by Kakashi? Just imagine the possibilities. If this what-if is already sparking your curiosity, make sure to drop a comment down below and let me know your thoughts. I love reading your takes and theories. And don't forget to check out the rest of the channel for even more intriguing what-if stories. There's plenty to binge and explore. Alright, I won't keep you waiting any longer. Grab your snacks, get comfy, and let's dive straight into this thought-provoking video. Night hung heavy over Konohagakure, darkness smothering the village in uneasy silence. The Nine-Tails' fury had passed, but his scars were raw, blood and dust, collapsed rooftops, whole streets twisted by claws no one could ever truly see. Hiruzen Sarutobi stood amidst it all, the old Hokage's silhouette hunched beneath the battered brim of his hat, watching as Leaf Nin hurried through the ruins, rescuing survivors, gathering the dead. In his arms, bundled in an orange swaddle, a child whimpered. The baby had just stopped crying. For hours he'd screamed, lungs raw, voice as small and lost as a candle in a storm. Now, exhaustion had silenced him, but his blue eyes blinked up at Hiruzen, white and solemn, like he already understood some secret no infant should. Hiruzen's hands, usually so steady, trembled around the baby's softness. Behind him, masked Anbu awaited orders. Somewhere distant, a childless woman wept for her husband, her hands bloody from clawing rubble. Kakashi Hatake appeared from the gloom as if conjured from the village's own pain, silver-haired, single visible eye rimmed red with exhaustion, the other hidden by that infamous mask. He was barely 16, and the war's ghosts still followed him, but he bowed anyway, as if such devastation was just another mission. The moon caught on his hit eye 8, shining over the Sharingan hidden beneath. Hokage-sama Kakashi murmured, voice low and even, but hollow. Hiruzen turned, cradling the bundle tighter. Kakashi. You are the last of your team. Minato. Kushina. Kakashi's single visible eye flickered. The weight of those names was another blow to bear. This child, Hiruzen said quietly, is their son. Kakashi blinked once, as if he hadn't heard. Naruto. He is an orphan now. Like you were once. And he holds the fox inside him. The village will never forgive him for it. Hiruzen's words faltered, and for a moment, the old man looked as breakable as the child. I cannot trust him to the crowds, not to the orphanage, not to any who would fear him. He needs protection. He needs guidance. Kakashi's mask might as well have been stone. You want me to raise him? Not a question, a verdict, weary and grave. The Hokage nodded. You are still young, but you know the pain of loss. And you know Minato's heart. I believe you can keep the boy safe, teach him what it means to be a shinobi, and more, what it means to be human. Thunder rumbled somewhere over the ruined rooftops. Kakashi looked down at the child, so small, so fragile, a tiny fist emerging from the blanket, waving helplessly. For a moment, Kakashi's posture wavered, just a flicker, shoulders tightening. Then, reluctantly, he reached out. The hand that took the baby was scarred, cool, trembling. Naruto opened his eyes. There was no memory in them, not yet, just a reflexive trust of the newly born. He reached up, grasped Kakashi's finger, clutching it with surprising strength. Kakashi's breath caught. For a heartbeat, his mask was less a barrier than a shield against the world. Protect him, Kakashi Hiruzen said, voice almost a whisper now. Don't let his light be devoured by this darkness. Kakashi's gaze never left the boy. I will do my duty. Duty? That was all he had left. Naruto's earliest memories were not of warmth, but of shapes and shadows. He saw the world through a haze of vague colors, dust motes swirling in sunbeams, the distant murmur of rain on tile, the soft click of sandals over old wood. He remembered the rustle of fabric as he was lifted, sometimes high in the air to see clouds drifting beyond the porch, sometimes just enough to be moved from one room to the next. Always, there was a masked figure. Silver hair, a face half hidden, a single inscrutable eye. Naruto learned the patterns quickly, the way his guardian moved with silent grace, the rare times a book was held up to the lamplight, the cold fingers that gently tucked a blanket around his chin each night. Laughter was rare. Smiles rare. But there was presence, and in the baby's heart, that became everything. Nights were longest. Naruto would cry for warmth, for a face, for a voice, any voice. Sometimes, when the world was darkest, he'd see the shape in the doorway, watchful and unmoving. The baby reached out, tiny fingers splayed wide, searching for something he couldn't name. Most nights, there was no answer. But once, when the storms outside howled, Kakashi came and sat by his side. He said nothing, just rested a hand on the edge of Naruto's crib, his presence enough to chase back the monsters in the shadows. The child, content, fell asleep clutching the edge of Kakashi's glove. Years passed like water through cupped hands, slow at first, then faster, spilling away before anyone could grasp them. Naruto grew, toddling across the floor of the small apartment they called home. He learned to crawl beneath tables, to climb onto windowsills to watch the sunrise over the Hokage monument. Kakashi's routines never changed. Up before dawn, training in the woods, missions that dragged him away for days at a time. Meals were eaten in silence, often interrupted by the urgent knock of a messenger at the door. But always, there was the mask. Always, the silence. One spring afternoon, a rare one when Kakashi was not on assignment, Naruto crawled into the living room and tugged at his guardian's pant leg. "Kaka," he babbled, not yet able to form the full name. Kakashi looked up from the battered book in his hands, visible eye unreadable. "Naruto." The word was soft, almost questioning. Naruto grinned, gap-toothed and wild, and thrust a handful of dandelions at Kakashi's knee. The mask did not move, but a muscle ticked at the corner of his eye. He took the flowers without a word and set them on the table. That night, when Naruto peeked into Kakashi's room, the dandelions rested on the windowsill, pressed between pages of an old mission report. It was the closest thing to an answer Naruto would receive for years. Kakashi's dreams were haunted. Each night he saw Obito's hand crushed beneath the boulder, Rin's blood splattering across the rain-soaked ground, Minato's smile fading in the smoke. He awoke in cold sweats, gasping into the darkness, the weight of old failure pressing on his chest. The child sleeping in the next room was not the son of his sensei, he was the vessel of the monster that had killed them all. Yet, when Naruto called out for him in the night, "Kaka, Kaka," Kakashi always came. Sometimes, the boy just wanted a cup of water or the blanket tugged back over his shoulders. Sometimes, he simply wanted to be held. Kakashi obliged, awkward and stiff, unsure of how much to give or what to hold back. Duty, he told himself. Always duty. But sometimes, as he watched Naruto sleep, a tiny hand curled in a fist atop the pillow, something else flickered beneath the mask. Something fragile and dangerous, a hope that perhaps, through this child, the world could heal a little. The village, meanwhile, was slow to recover. Whispers clung to Naruto's name like burrs. Old women crossed the street when they saw him toddling behind Kakashi. Children's mothers tugged him close, murmuring words Naruto couldn't yet understand. Kakashi shielded him from most of it, but not all. One winter's day, as snow fell in thick, silent curtains, Kakashi returned from a mission to find Naruto pressed up against the window, cheeks and hands smeared with condensation, watching the other children build a snowman in the courtyard below. He approached quietly, the way he always did. "Naruto. Come away from there." Naruto looked up. "Why can't I play?" Kakashi hesitated. "It's cold. I like the cold." Kakashi's eyes flickered to the children below, the way their parents shot furtive glances up at the window, the muttered warnings on their lips. He placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder, gentle but firm. "We'll train instead." The boy's eyes fell. "Okay." That night, when Naruto was asleep, Kakashi sat beside his bed for a long time, gazing at the boy's peaceful face, remembering another child, himself, who had watched the world from behind invisible walls. Spring returned, and with it, the first warmth since the attack. Naruto's hair grew wild and sun-bright, sticking up in every direction. His laughter, rare but bright, echoed through the apartment like a bell. Kakashi bought him his first set of wooden kunai, teaching him how to grip them, how to throw, how to watch the arc of a blade through the air. Naruto watched his masked guardian with endless fascination, mimicking every move, every silent gesture. He longed for approval, for a smile, a pat on the head, anything that might pierce the barrier of cool detachment Kakashi wore as tightly as his mask. It didn't come. Not yet. But sometimes, late at night, Naruto would dream of sunlight streaming through the windows, and in those dreams, the masked man would smile. And when he woke, Naruto would always reach out, fingers splayed wide, searching for the only light he knew. Morning in Konoha came with birdsong, distant shouts from market vendors, and the rhythmic thud of Kakashi's footsteps across the wooden floors. The air was crisp, and golden slants of light slipped through thin paper screens, painting pale patterns on the walls of the small Hatake apartment. Naruto woke to the rustle of fabric and the soft click of a door shutting, the start of another day under the watchful eye of the village's most inscrutable shinobi. Kakashi's routines were unyielding. Each morning before dawn, he moved with silent efficiency. Making tea, sharpening kunai, reading reports by the lamplight, all before Naruto's eyes had even opened. When he returned from early morning training in the woods, his clothes were dusted with dew and earth, and his hair glistened with moisture from the low branches. He never spoke of his missions. Sometimes they left faint bruises or new scars on his arms, but he never complained, and Naruto learned early that some questions simply were not answered. Meals were an exercise in discipline. Kakashi cooked plainly: rice, grilled fish, a sliver of egg, eaten in near silence at the low kitchen table. Naruto, restless and full of questions, fidgeted as he tried to fill the gaps with stories and laughter, but Kakashi rarely encouraged it. If Naruto spoke out of turn or played with his chopsticks, Kakashi would tap the table softly, a gentle but firm rebuke, and Naruto would go quiet again, cheeks red and eyes downcast. The only time the house felt truly alive was during training. Kakashi, precise and methodical, led Naruto through basic exercises in the narrow courtyard behind their home. Stances, basic taijutsu forms, the theory of chakra, the slow, deliberate motion of a kunai thrown at a painted target. Naruto tried desperately to please his guardian, copying every movement, biting his tongue when he stumbled or failed. Kakashi offered little praise, sometimes just a curt nod, or rare, muttered acceptable. Naruto lived for those moments, even if they left him exhausted and bruised. For a child who had never been embraced, even a single word from Kakashi felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. Other memories surfaced in flashes, moments of childish hope colliding with Kakashi's stoicism. Once, after a morning of failed attempts to balance on a log while focusing his chakra, Naruto slumped to the ground, panting and frustrated. "Why do we have to do this every day?" he grumbled, kicking at a stray pebble. Kakashi crouched beside him, his expression unreadable. "A ninja's strength lies in their foundation," he said, tone even. "Those who skip steps are the first to fall. But everyone else gets to play." Naruto's voice was small, almost pleading. "Everyone else isn't you," Kakashi said. There was a pause, then a softer note crept in. "You carry something special, Naruto. That means you must become strong enough to protect yourself and others." Naruto looked up, searching for any warmth in his guardian's gaze. He found only cool resolve, but the words, strange and heavy, settled in his chest. Loneliness, for Naruto, was not a sudden storm, but a quiet constant ache, a hollow place that deepened each year. He watched the other children play from behind fences or windows, heard their laughter carry through the streets. Sometimes, he tried to join in, but the wary glances of parents and the whispered warnings always sent him running back home, to the safety of Kakashi's silence. Kakashi, for his part, was not unkind. But his affection was buried beneath layers of habit and grief. When Naruto scraped his knee, Kakashi cleaned the wound and wrapped it in bandages, hands steady but gentle. When Naruto was sick, Kakashi brewed bitter medicine and stayed awake at his bedside, reading quietly until Naruto's fever broke. But even then, he kept his mask on, always the guardian, never the friend. The closest Naruto came to warmth was in the smallest of gestures. A hand on his shoulder after a difficult training, a soft blanket tucked around him on cold nights, a wordless squeeze on his arm before a solo errand. These tokens became treasures in Naruto's heart, hints of something deeper hidden behind the mask. The apartment itself was a place of order and quiet, a world governed by Kakashi's discipline. Books lined every shelf, their spines creased and faded. Scrolls of jutsu formulas were stacked with meticulous precision. The only splash of color was a faded photograph tucked into a frame on the mantel, the glass cracked at the corner. In it, a much younger Kakashi stood beside a blonde man with a bright grin, and a red-haired woman with kind eyes cradled a newborn wrapped in orange. Naruto stared at the photo for hours, tracing the faces with a fingertip, wondering about the warmth that had once filled that room. But the man in the photo never smiled at him. It was on one such quiet afternoon that Naruto, desperate to break the silence, decided to pull his first prank. He'd been watching the neighborhood cats for weeks, noting how they darted into alleys and scaled garden walls. He decided to mimic them, fashioning a crude trap from string and empty cans. The plan was simple. Lure Kakashi into the hallway, trigger the tripwire, and watch as a pile of flour tumbled from the rafters onto his guardian's head. Naruto crouched in the shadowed hallway, heart pounding, barely able to contain his laughter. He waited until he heard the familiar shuffle of Kakashi's slippers, then, with a loud caw-caw, "Come quick," he sprang the trap. The flour came down in a white cloud, covering Kakashi from head to toe. For a moment, the world was silent. Naruto braced for anger, or worse, the chilling silence that sometimes followed disappointment. But Kakashi just stood there, blinking through the powder, one visible eye wide with something almost like shock. Naruto swallowed, cheeks flushing. I just wanted to see if you'd smile." Kakashi said nothing. Then, slowly, he wiped a streak of flour from his mask and flicked it at Naruto, who yelped and stumbled backwards. For the first time in Naruto's memory, the tension in Kakashi's shoulders seemed to ease. His eye curved upward, just a little, at the edge. If one squinted, it might almost have been a smile. "Clean this up, Naruto," he said, voice gentler than usual. Naruto grinned, feeling a strange, giddy warmth bloom in his chest. That night, after the mess was swept and the apartment restored to order, Naruto lay awake beneath his thin blanket, staring at the cracks in the ceiling. The world outside was quiet, but the echo of Kakashi's almost smile lingered, sweet and elusive. Maybe, Naruto thought, he could make the masked man laugh again. Maybe, beneath the silence and stoicism, there was something waiting to be found. He resolved, with the stubbornness only children possess, to try again tomorrow. But the next morning, the mask was back, as unreadable as ever. Training resumed, strict as clockwork, and Kakashi's voice broke no argument. Still, Naruto caught a glimmer of something soft when he handed his guardian a cup of tea, and when Kakashi patted his head, awkward, brief, but real, Naruto's heart soared. It was not the easy affection he saw in other families, but it was theirs. And so, in the space between shadows and sunlight, boy and guardian continued their careful dance, each too scarred, yet too stubborn, to let go. The forest behind the Hatake apartment was a place of hush and green, old, sturdy trees arching overhead, their branches tangled in close, letting sunlight fall in dappled, moving patterns on the mossy ground. Here, the world shrank to the sound of birdsong and the crunch of Naruto's sandals, as he followed Kakashi out among the roots. Training began before the mist had burned from the grass. Kakashi stood with arms folded, masked face unreadable, as Naruto struggled through his first forms. Stance, breath, movement, again and again, each step repeated until sweat trickled from Naruto's brow, and his limbs trembled with fatigue. There were no words of encouragement, only the sound of Kakashi's calm, almost dispassionate instructions. Wider stance. Watch your balance. Don't rush. Let the chakra settle. Again. Naruto's small fists gripped wooden kunai, his body aching to move faster, to impress, but Kakashi's lessons were relentless in their patience. Between exercises, Kakashi led Naruto through the forest, teaching him to listen, really listen, to the world. "Hear that?" he'd ask, tilting his head. A squirrel's tail brushing bark. "That rustle, wind in the bamboo, not an enemy. You must know the difference." His voice was low, even, rarely rising. When Naruto closed his eyes, focusing on those subtle sounds, he felt a sense of wonder bloom in his chest, as if the world was full of secrets waiting for him alone. But when he opened his eyes, Kakashi's face was as distant as the moon. Training was solitary work. Kakashi watched, but rarely intervened, expecting Naruto to correct his own mistakes. Sometimes, when Naruto faltered or fell, he would look up, hoping for a word, a smile, a gesture of praise. More often than not, Kakashi was already a few paces away, back turned, trusting Naruto to get up on his own. Frustration welled in Naruto, hot, sharp, and lonely. He longed to be noticed, to be more than a duty. On days when his body ached and his spirit flagged, he would steal glances through the trees at the village below, watching other children laughing in the streets, running with paper kites and wooden swords. He wanted to join them, to be anyone but the masked man's silent apprentice. So one morning, as Kakashi meditated beneath a cedar, Naruto slipped away. He scrambled through the underbrush, shoes slipping in the loam, and burst out into the open with wild, nervous energy. In the village, everything was color in motion, vendors shouting, shinobi leaping across rooftops, children darting between stalls. Naruto ran with them for a moment, a shadow in their laughter, but soon the others noticed him. "Isn't that him?" a mother whispered, pulling her daughter close. "Stay away," an older boy muttered, eyes narrow. Naruto felt the stares, heavy and cold, pressing on his back. He forced a smile and kept moving, climbing up onto a garden wall, waving at the others in the square below. No one waved back. When he tried to join their game, they scattered like birds, leaving him alone. Still, he lingered, heart pounding. He crept behind the ramen stand, watching as the cooks worked, flour dusted their hands, steam billowed from bubbling pots. He grinned, tempted to sneak a taste, but the chef caught his eye and shooed him away, frowning. Naruto's laughter faded. The ache in his chest grew sharp, edged with embarrassment. He didn't want to go back, not yet, so he wandered the alleys, chasing stray cats, leaping from crate to crate. He climbed onto a fence, slipped, and tumbled into a puddle, soaking his pants with muddy water. That was when trouble found him, a wild dog, thin and mangy, snarling as it prowled toward him from the shadows. Naruto froze, pulse thrumming. The dog lunged, teeth flashing. Then, in a blur, Kakashi was there. He dropped from the rooftop like a shadow, kunai flashing, landing between Naruto and the dog. He made no sound, just a flick of his wrist, and the dog skittered away, tail between its legs. For a moment, the world stood still. Kakashi knelt beside Naruto, checking him for injuries. "You left the training ground," he said, tone even, but Naruto heard something strange, something tight and raw, in the words. Naruto looked down, guilt burning his cheeks. "I just wanted to play." Kakashi's eyes softened, just a fraction. He sighed, sliding his hands into his pockets. "The world isn't always safe, Naruto. Especially for you." Naruto bristled, blinking back sudden tears. "You never let me do anything fun. You never." Smile. "Why do you even care?" Kakashi was silent for a long moment. Then, with a gentleness that startled Naruto, he reached out and brushed the mud from Naruto's face. "Because it's my job to keep you safe. Even if I have to be the bad guy." Naruto stared at him, lips trembling. He wanted to shout, to demand more, to demand anything. But Kakashi's eyes were softer now, the lines of worry clear around the edges. In that moment, Naruto saw something new. The crack in the mask, a flicker of fear. Kakashi helped him to his feet. Together, in silence, they walked home. That night, as rain drummed the roof, Naruto lay awake in the dark. He remembered the feeling of Kakashi's hand on his head, gentle but sure. He remembered the flash of fear in Kakashi's eye when the dog lunged, and the tightness in his voice. For the first time, Naruto wondered if maybe, just maybe, he mattered, even if the words were never spoken. The world outside was still lonely. The training ground was still cold and empty. But Naruto closed his eyes and imagined that, beneath the mask, Kakashi watched over him, not just out of duty, but out of something deeper. And that hope, small and stubborn, carried him into sleep. The summer sun pressed hard against Konoha, baking rooftops and sending shimmering waves of heat through the village streets. It was a kind of day that made the air itself feel heavy, a day when even the cicadas fell silent by afternoon. Naruto sprawled on the tatami floor of the apartment, chin propped in his hands, watching motes of dust swirl through sunbeams. Kakashi sat at the table, sorting mission reports into neat stacks, one gloved finger absent-mindedly tracing the edge of a battered old book. The apartment was still, filled with the quiet that always seemed to settle between them, a silence Naruto sometimes filled with daydreams of laughter and voices that never quite belonged to him. Naruto's mind wandered to the edge of sleep, drifting on the sound of Kakashi's pen scratching across paper. But something had changed. Lately, there had been whispers in the village, strange cruel snatches of words caught in the wind, faces turning away as he passed. Naruto felt it even among children, in the way games stopped when he drew near, how teachers at the academy sometimes paused mid-sentence, looking at him like they were remembering a secret. That night, sleep would not come. The moon was bright, painting silver shapes on the ceiling. Naruto tossed, listening to the distant pulse of the village, night patrols, late voices, the echo of old grief. In the quiet, a different sound came, a low, insistent growl, not from outside, but deep within his own chest. At first, Naruto thought it a trick of hunger or nerves. But when he closed his eyes, the darkness wasn't empty. In it, he saw a flicker of red, a slit of bright feral color. It was gone in a heartbeat, but the echo of it set his heart racing. He pressed his hand to his stomach, where a faint tingling warmth had started to grow, like embers in a fire. The next morning, he tried to ignore it. Kakashi noticed his silence, but said nothing. They trained in the woods, sweat sticking Naruto's hair to his forehead as he flung kunai at a distant stump, each throw angrier than the last. With every miss, the warmth in his belly flared, sharp and wild. The air itself seemed to shimmer around his hands. Again Kakashi said, tossing another kunai. Naruto gritted his teeth, letting the heat build. He hurled the blade, and it thunked dead center, deeper than any had before. For a moment, Naruto felt powerful. Alive. But Kakashi's gaze sharpened, lingering on him with new scrutiny. "Naruto," he said quietly, "come here." Naruto obeyed, breathless and flushed, a strange ache settling in his bones. Kakashi knelt, eye to eye. "Do you feel anything strange?" he asked, tone softer than usual. Naruto hesitated, then nodded. "There's something inside me. I saw red. I heard growling. Was it a genjutsu?" Kakashi was silent for a long time. Then, in a rare gesture, he sat down beside Naruto, drawing his knees up, the woods closed around them. He pulled down his mask just a little, enough for Naruto to see the line of his mouth, set in something close to pain. "No genjutsu," Kakashi said, voice steady. "Naruto. You know about the night you came to me, right?" the night the Nine Tails attacked the village. Naruto's breath caught. The story was legend, a monster's fury, heroes and tragedy. But no one had told him why the villagers stared, why he felt different. Kakashi pressed on. The fourth Hokage, Minato, your father, he sealed the Nine Tails inside you. It was the only way to save Konoha. Kakashi's hand hovered, uncertain, then settled lightly on Naruto's shoulder. You're not a monster, Naruto. But there is a power inside you, a dangerous one. That's why I've been strict. Why I train you the way I do. Because you have to learn control, not just strength. Naruto's world tipped, a slow, dizzying spin. My father. He was the Hokage. Kakashi nodded, pain shadowing his single visible eye. He was brave. Kind. He believed in this village, and in you, more than anyone. He gave his life so you could live. Naruto felt the warmth in his stomach twist, sharper now, mingled with something fragile and aching. So that's why everyone, why they. Kakashi's hand squeezed gently. They're afraid, Naruto. Not of you, but of what's inside. It isn't fair. But it's real. Naruto looked down, fists clenched. Why didn't you tell me before? Kakashi drew a slow breath. I thought I was protecting you. Maybe I was wrong. I remember being a child and having everything taken away, my father, my team, my sensei. I wanted to spare you some of that pain. But secrets don't heal. Only truth does. Naruto's voice was small, tight with tears he fought to hold back. Does it make you afraid of me too? Kakashi's answer was immediate, steady as stone. No. Never. I promised to protect you, not because it was my duty, but because you're family now. My only family. For a moment, the mask fell away completely. Kakashi's grief, his guilt, all the weight he carried, Naruto saw it plain. But he also saw pride, and a kind of hope that made his chest ache. Naruto looked at the woods around them, the place where he'd spent so many hours longing for approval, for a word, for a sign that he mattered. Now, in the hush of trees and sunlight, something like trust began to take root. Will it always be this hard? Naruto asked, voice trembling. Kakashi gazed up through the leaves, lips curling in a wistful, almost smile. Probably. But you're not alone. Not anymore. Later that night, Naruto lay awake, the weight of Kakashi's words heavy in his chest. He let his mind drift, not to the monster inside him, but to his father's face in the photograph, the glint of Kakashi's eye as he'd spoken of duty and family. Somewhere deep inside, the growl quieted, as if listening, too. Naruto stared at the ceiling, a fragile hope stirring in his chest. Maybe family didn't always mean warmth and laughter. Sometimes, it meant shadows, honesty, and the promise of a hand on your shoulder when you needed it most. He closed his eyes, breathing slow and deep, letting the peace of the training ground, the trust, hard-won and new, carry him into sleep. Rain pounded against the paper windows, a steady, relentless drumming that filled every room with restless energy. The apartment felt tighter than ever, its air heavy with things unspoken. Naruto paced the length of the hallway, frustration simmering beneath his skin. He was growing quickly now, taller, faster, more skilled each week, and with that growth came questions and anger he barely knew how to name. Kakashi's discipline had sharpened. Training sessions that once felt challenging now bordered on brutal. Longer runs, steeper hills, more complex taijutsu patterns. Kakashi never raised his voice, never lost his cool. He simply demanded more and more, offering only the rarest nods of approval, his single visible eye a constant judge. Naruto craved something more, something beyond silent routines and cold, measured praise. He longed for warmth, for laughter, for any sign that what he did mattered not just as duty, but as love. So he began to act out. At first, it was little things, skipping sets of push-ups, slacking off during meditation, dawdling on errands. But when Kakashi's response was a quiet word or, worse, an indifferent silence, Naruto escalated. He left muddy footprints on the floor, accidentally spilled ink on mission scrolls, snuck sweets into his pack, even hid Kakashi's favorite book under the floorboards. Nothing worked. Kakashi's mask, literal and otherwise, never cracked. Each infraction was met with a quiet do better or a new task, harder than the last. No shouting, no scolding, just that calm, unreadable disappointment. Naruto's resentment grew until it felt like a storm inside him, thunder and lightning with nowhere to strike. It reached a breaking point one afternoon, the clouds thick and low. Kakashi had set Naruto to practice shuriken throws for hours, offering only terse corrections, never a word of encouragement. When Naruto missed a target, the familiar burn of embarrassment flooded his face. Again Kakashi said, not unkind, but implacable. Something inside Naruto snapped. I'm tired, he blurted, hurling his shuriken wildly. It clattered off a tree and fell in the mud. What's the point? No matter what I do, you never say anything. You never laugh. You never even look at me, not really. Kakashi was silent, the air thick between them. Raindrops dripped from his silver hair. Pick up the shuriken, Naruto. Naruto stomped over, eyes stinging, fists clenched. Do you even care if I'm here? Or am I just another mission for you? You don't have to pretend, nobody else does. He flung the shuriken down and stood, chest heaving, daring Kakashi to respond. Kakashi watched him, unreadable as always. But beneath the mask, something shifted. He knelt, eye level with Naruto, and for once, did not look away. You want me to yell? Kakashi asked quietly. Would that prove I care? You want me to smile all the time, tell you you're special? Naruto's lips trembled. I just want you to be here. Not like some ghost. For a moment, the world narrowed to just the two of them, the forest quiet, except for the steady drum of rain on leaves. Kakashi's shoulders slumped, and when he spoke, his voice was hoarse, stripped of all its usual distance. I don't know how to be what you want, he admitted. My father, he was a great ninja, but he wasn't there for me. My team. They're all gone. Every time I got close to someone, I lost them. Minato-sensei, your mother. Obito, Rin. His words trailed off, heavy with old pain. Kakashi drew a long, shaking breath. When the Hokage gave you to me, I thought I could just do my duty. Keep you safe, teach you to survive. I didn't know how to be more. Naruto's anger faded, replaced by something raw and uncertain. He saw, for the first time, that the mask was not just hiding Kakashi's face, but holding him together. I don't want perfect, Naruto said, voice cracking. I just want you to try. I want to know I matter to you, not just as your job, but as your family. Kakashi closed his eye, and when he opened it, there was something fierce and aching in its depths. He reached out, slow and tentative, and placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. You do matter, Kakashi said softly. More than I ever let myself say. Naruto stared at the ground, afraid to meet his guardian's gaze. You always say being a ninja means following rules. But I don't care about rules, I care about you. And if you leave me behind, He broke off, fighting tears. Kakashi squeezed his shoulder, the touch awkward but real. I promise, Naruto. I'm not leaving you. Not now, not ever. The rain softened, turning to mist. For the first time, Naruto felt the ache in his chest ease, the loneliness lifting a little. He glanced up, catching a flicker of warmth in Kakashi's eye. Kakashi rose, ruffling Naruto's hair. Let's go home. They walked together through the dripping woods, not as teacher and student, but as something closer to father and son, two souls, battered but unbroken, learning how to trust each other, step by uncertain step. That night, after dinner, Naruto found Kakashi sitting on the porch, watching fireflies drift through the darkness. Naruto sat beside him, knees tucked to his chest. Do you ever miss them? Naruto asked softly. Kakashi was quiet for a long moment. Every day. But I don't want to lose anything else. Especially not you. Naruto smiled, small and true. Then don't. Kakashi nudged him gently. Deal. They sat together in the quiet, listening to the heartbeat of the village, the pain between them eased by honesty at last. Somewhere in the darkness, the future waited, uncertain but bright. And, for the first time, both were ready to face it, together. Morning fog clung to the ground, draping the training field in a shimmering veil. Kakashi stood at the edge of the clearing, hands tucked in his pockets, single visible eye half-lidded as if still half-dreaming. But Naruto knew the look now. It was the gaze of a shinobi who missed nothing, who catalogued every broken twig, every shifting breeze, every heartbeat besides his own. Naruto stretched, rolling the stiffness from his shoulders. He was older now, his childhood's roundness giving way to wiry muscle and quick reflexes. The air between them had changed, something honest had slipped in, a fragile trust forged in the wake of their confrontation months before. Kakashi's routines remained, but now they were peppered with words, small questions, moments of rare but genuine care. Their training had grown rigorous. Gone were the days of simple stances and elementary kunai drills. Kakashi pushed Naruto hard, demanding not only strength but precision and adaptability. Chakra control, Kakashi said, tapping a heavy book against his palm, is the difference between a shinobi who lives and one who dies. Pour too much into a jutsu, you'll exhaust yourself. Too little, and your technique fizzles. Naruto stood at the foot of a thick ancient tree. Above him, 100 shallow gouges marked where Kakashi's feet had climbed in earlier years. Kakashi handed him a length of cloth and gestured to the trunk. Climb, he instructed. No hands. Focus your chakra into your souls. Feel the bark, each grain, each groove. Naruto nodded, then closed his eyes, letting his breath slow. He summoned chakra, felt it swirl, then pressed a foot to the trunk. He took a step, another, heart pounding as he made it halfway up, then his control faltered, and he tumbled into the grass. Kakashi watched, expression unreadable. Again. Naruto climbed. He slipped. Again. Again. Sweat rolled down his face, mixing with dirt and determination. On the 12th try, he managed 5 paces before sliding down. He gritted his teeth, refusing to quit. Between attempts, Kakashi drilled him in kunai throwing, set up rows of targets at odd angles and distances, making Naruto hit each one without time to aim. Don't rely on your eyes alone, he said. Hear the wind. Trust your body's memory. The sun rose higher. Naruto's muscles burned, his hands bruised and bleeding. Still he trained, driven not just by stubbornness, but by the rare flicker of pride he sometimes glimpsed in Kakashi's gaze. Later, in the shade, Kakashi introduced new challenges. Stealth missions, he said, handing Naruto a bundle of dark cloth. Blend in, move like a shadow, don't let the world see you. He sent Naruto into the woods to retrieve a single white feather from a bird's nest, without disturbing the mother or leaving a trace. Each failure, snapping a twig, startling the bird, leaving footprints, earned a calm correction, but Kakashi's expectations were clear. Learn. Adapt. Endure. Naruto discovered that stealth wasn't just silence, but patience. It was waiting, watching, moving when the world was distracted. On his 3rd try, he returned with the feather clutched in shaking hands, a triumphant grin breaking across his face. Kakashi's eye curved, just a little. Not bad. It was more praise than Naruto had ever heard from him. The words glowed inside him for hours. In the evenings, they sat together on the apartment porch, sharing simple meals, rice, salted fish, tea. Kakashi read quietly, but now and then he would quiz Naruto about their training. What did you miss on the 3rd throw? There was a crosswind. I didn't adjust. What sound did you hear in the brush before the bird flew? 2 feet, not 4. It was a snake, not a fox. Sometimes Naruto failed, but Kakashi never scolded, only pressed him to think deeper. A shinobi's most dangerous weapon, he said one evening, isn't jutsu. It's his mind. Genjutsu came next, illusions layered on reality, subtle as dreams. Kakashi wove them into Naruto's training, planting tricks in the woods. The scent of food where none was cooking, the flicker of movement at the corner of his eye, the sound of water where there was only dry earth. Don't just look, Kakashi said. See. Don't just listen, question. Trust nothing until you've proved it true. Naruto struggled, his senses often deceived. Frustration burned, but determination burned hotter. Each day, his eyes grew sharper. He learned to recognize the way the air thickened before an illusion, the tingling in his gut when something was amiss. Late one afternoon, Kakashi set a kunai target spinning on a rope, then surrounded it with genjutsu that made it appear and vanish. Naruto waited, watching the shifting air, ignoring what he saw until he felt the faintest tug on the rope. He threw, eyes closed, and the kunai thunked into the target with a satisfying sound. Kakashi let out a quiet breath. Very good, Naruto. Naruto flushed with pride. He realized then that every moment of failure, every stern silence, had been teaching him to listen to more than his senses, to trust his own mind. But the praise was always brief. Kakashi pushed him harder with each success, never letting him grow comfortable. When Naruto failed, and he failed often, he would grit his teeth, try again, refusing to let frustration defeat him. One night, as rain tapped the eaves, Naruto slumped at the table, nursing a bruised hand. You're never satisfied, he muttered. No matter how hard I try. Kakashi's voice was softer than usual. A shinobi's journey never ends. The moment you think you know everything, you're already dead. Naruto looked up, surprised at the warmth he heard beneath the words. I just want you to survive, Kakashi continued, eyes distant. Survive, and be better than those who came before. Even me. Naruto nodded, the ache in his bones soothed by the rare honesty. He tucked the lesson away, adding it to the growing collection of things he had learned from the man who was more than a sensei, if not quite a father. On the training ground the next morning, Naruto stood beneath the trees, bandages on his knuckles, dirt on his cheeks. The world felt bigger than ever, but less lonely. He bowed, as Kakashi had taught him, a silent promise in his posture. Again? He asked, voice steady. Kakashi's eye curved with quiet approval. Again. And so they trained, side by side, beneath the shadowed boughs, teacher and apprentice, guardian and son, both learning the shape of strength and of trust. Wind swept across the clearing, bending the grass in waves. Naruto perched atop a fallen log, chest heaving from exertion, sweat stinging his eyes. His hands ached from endless drills, his mind sore from days of unyielding strategy exercises. Kakashi watched from a nearby boulder, an unreadable shape against the sun, Icha tucked under his arm, untouched, this time. Naruto stared at his sensei, frustration simmering just beneath his skin. Their training had evolved into something far beyond simple jutsu or taijutsu. Kakashi demanded answers to riddles, set traps within traps, pitted Naruto against his own expectations. It began with a story. One humid afternoon, as Naruto recovered from a particularly grueling spar, Kakashi settled beside him, mask pulled low, gaze distant. "Did I ever tell you about the Sharingan?" he asked quietly. Naruto sat up, curiosity piercing his exhaustion. He'd only glimpsed its red gleam once, and the memory felt half mythical. "It's not just a tool for copying jutsu," Kakashi explained. "It's a window into the flow of battle, a way to see what comes next, predict and respond in a single breath." He tapped his temple. "It's not the eye that's powerful, Naruto. It's the mind behind it." Kakashi's visible eye grew sharper, more intense. "Raw power is nothing if you can't read your opponent, if you can't anticipate, adapt, and think. You have the stamina and the will, but that's not enough. If you want to survive and protect others, you need to learn how to see." Naruto nodded, determination burning bright, but a small petulant voice inside him whispered, "But I want to win, too." Kakashi rose, signaling the start of another exercise. "Show me what you've learned. Try to predict my next move." Naruto dropped into a ready stance. Kakashi's posture was loose, almost lazy, hands in pockets. For a moment, Naruto thought he could see through the act. He guessed Kakashi would dart left, feint low, come in for a sweep. He lunged, aiming to intercept. But Kakashi was already gone, a blur, a shadow. Naruto tumbled into the grass, face first, a groan escaping his lips. Again Kakashi called, tone as dry as summer dust. Naruto tried every trick he could think of, watching for patterns in Kakashi's stance, guessing at his breathing, anticipating a strike. Every time, Kakashi slipped through his guard as if Naruto were made of mist, flicking his forehead with a single, almost affectionate tap. Naruto's frustration boiled over. "It's impossible," he shouted, chest heaving. "No one can keep up with you. You're not even trying." Kakashi tilted his head, a glint of amusement in his lone visible eye. "You're thinking about me. Not about the fight. Not about the field. Your mind is like a kunai, sharp, but too obvious. Widen your focus. See everything." Naruto glared, rubbing the sore spot on his forehead. "That's easy for you to say." But he watched, and tried, and failed, again and again. He tripped over roots he hadn't noticed, got caught in basic traps, fell for misdirection every single time. Kakashi's movements were elegant, almost playful, and Naruto's irritation only made him sloppier. Eventually, exhausted and muddied, Naruto collapsed at the foot of a tree. He glared up at the branches, scowling. Kakashi landed beside him with a rustle of leaves, settling onto the grass with deliberate care. "You're stubborn," Kakashi observed, voice unusually gentle. "That's good. But stubbornness is a tool, not a solution. You have to know when to yield, when to observe, when to act." Naruto looked away, but the anger in his chest had cooled. In its place was the hollow, aching hunger for understanding. "Am I really that hopeless?" Naruto muttered. Kakashi didn't answer right away. Instead, he offered Naruto a flask of water, and let the silence linger. "You remind me of someone," Kakashi said at last, his tone threaded with old sorrow and pride. "Obito. He never gave up, no matter how many times he failed. He learned to see the world not just through his eyes, but through his heart." Naruto's scowl faded. He let the words settle. "I want to be like that. But I'm not you. Or him." Kakashi stood, dusting off his pants. "That's exactly the point. You're Naruto. You'll find your own way. But you need to use your head as well as your fists." The afternoon wore on. Kakashi set up another round, this time, a series of wooden dummies, each with a different weakness. Naruto's task: defeat them all in a single pass, using the environment and his own instincts. Naruto charged in, spinning and ducking, but his first attempts ended in tangled limbs and bruised shins. He paused, recalling Kakashi's words. "Widen your focus. See everything." He breathed, steadying himself. He looked for patterns, the light through the leaves, the sway of the dummies, the position of every stone and branch. He didn't charge this time. He moved slow, studying, calculating. And, for the first time, he began to anticipate. He used a low-hanging branch to vault over one dummy, rolled beneath another's swinging arm, used momentum to hurl a fallen stick that toppled a third. It wasn't graceful, but it was thoughtful, and he finished with a triumphant cry. Kakashi's eye curved in that now familiar way, and for the first time, he laughed, a low, genuine sound that startled them both. Naruto blinked, stunned. Did I finally get it? Kakashi clapped him on the back. You're getting there. For a rare moment, their laughter mingled, warm and real. It echoed through the woods, filling the empty places between them. That night, Naruto lay awake, staring at the moonlight spilling through the window. He replayed the day's failures and victories, thinking not just of what he could do, but how he could learn. The lesson was harsh, but it felt good. Not the raw rush of a simple win, but the quiet pride of having earned something. He wondered what Obito had been like, what it meant to see with more than just your eyes. He wondered if one day, he could do the same. Naruto fell asleep smiling, dreaming not of brute force, but of a world where he could be both clever and strong, a world where he could protect those he loved, not just with fists, but with heart and mind. The academy classroom buzzed with low voices and nervous laughter as students filed in, the smell of chalk dust and fresh paper thick in the air. Naruto sat near the window, hands folded tightly on his desk, gaze trained on the slow drift of clouds outside. He was used to solitude, used to silence and the steady weight of Kakashi's expectations, but here, the noise pressed in on him, loud and unfamiliar. He felt out of place among the other children, even more so than before. There was a quiet calculating edge to the way he moved, a wariness honed by years under Kakashi's watchful eye. His classmates eyed him with a mixture of curiosity and unease, whispering behind cupped hands, their words half glimpsed like shadows at the edge of vision. Iruka-sensei entered, warm and steady, his voice cutting through the chatter. Alright, everyone, settle down. He wrote their day's lesson on the board, then glanced over the class, his gaze pausing on Naruto for a breath longer than necessary. Naruto met Iruka's eyes, expecting the usual flicker of suspicion or pity. But Iruka just offered a small, encouraging smile before turning back to the board. It was a tiny thing, but it caught Naruto off guard, and for the first time since entering the academy, he felt something inside him relax. At break, Naruto retreated to the back courtyard, hoping for quiet. He found Iruka waiting there, sipping tea on a stone bench. Training with Hatake-san again this morning? Iruka asked, tone casual but kind. Naruto nodded, wary. Iruka patted the bench beside him. Come on, sit. You always run off by yourself. You know, you don't have to be alone all the time. Naruto shrugged, gaze fixed on the scuffed toes of his sandals. It's easier, he mumbled. People don't really want me around. Iruka's smile didn't falter. Sometimes people just don't know how to start. Give them a chance. Naruto glanced up, uncertain. The teachers at the academy had always treated him with distant politeness, but Iruka's patience felt genuine, steady as stone, undeterred by the rumors and whispers that clung to Naruto like burrs. After a moment's hesitation, Naruto nodded. Iruka's hand landed gently on his shoulder, warm and reassuring. You're not as alone as you think, Naruto. You just have to reach out. Naruto took the words to heart, though it wasn't easy. He started sitting with the other kids during lunch, quietly observing the ebb and flow of their conversations, picking out their rivalries and alliances, the way Kakashi had taught him to study a battlefield. He was quieter than most, eyes sharp, words measured, always analyzing, always waiting for a sign of danger. At first, the others kept their distance. Kiba eyed him with open curiosity, while Shikamaru just regarded him with sleepy indifference. Hinata offered him shy glances from across the room, but looked away when he tried to meet her gaze. Still, Naruto persisted, listening more than talking, watching, learning. He helped Chaoji up when he tripped on the training field. He offered his pencil to Ino when hers broke. Small things, but meaningful. Iruka watched all this from afar, pride warming his expression. It was during a sparring exercise that the first true crack appeared in Naruto's loneliness. Paired against Kiba, Naruto kept his guard tight, analyzing Kiba's movements as Kakashi had taught him. He spotted the moment Kiba telegraphed his attack, sidestepped, and sent the other boy tumbling into the grass. For a heartbeat, there was stunned silence. Then Kiba laughed, loud and delighted. Didn't know you could move like that, Naruto. He crowed, brushing dirt from his knees. Teach me that trick sometime. Naruto grinned, awkward but real. Maybe, he replied, the words strange and bright on his tongue. After that, something changed. The other students grew less wary, drawn by Naruto's quiet confidence and the sharp, observant way he engaged with their games and lessons. Some envied his speed or his skill with shuriken. Others found his silence a challenge, trying to draw him into jokes or dares. There was still a distance, a shadow that lingered between Naruto and the rest, but it was no longer unbridgeable. For the first time, Naruto felt the stirrings of something like acceptance, fragile, but growing. Kakashi appeared at the edge of the academy grounds from time to time, leaning against a tree, unreadable as ever. He watched Naruto's first tentative friendships with an intensity that belied his casual posture. He saw the way Iruka guided the boy, how Naruto's eyes lit up at the rare praise from a peer, how the other students slowly adjusted to his presence. Kakashi said little about these changes, but that night, he placed a steaming bowl of miso ramen on the table, a treat reserved for special occasions. Naruto blinked in surprise. "What's this for?" Kakashi shrugged, the curve of his visible eye hinting at a smile. "Saw you on the field today. You're making progress." Naruto's chest swelled with pride, at the words, at the ramen, at the knowledge that his efforts mattered. They ate together in companionable silence, the distance between them closing just a little more. After dinner, Naruto slipped out onto the porch, gazing up at the moon. He thought of Iruka's words, of the warmth of a hand on his shoulder, of Kiba's laughter and the small moments of kindness that had begun to fill his days. Family, he realized, could be chosen as much as inherited. It was there, waiting in the quiet moments, in a smile, in shared ramen, in the steady presence of a teacher who believed in him. Naruto wrapped his arms around his knees and let himself hope, just a little, that he was not alone after all. Dusk washed the village in gold, the rooftops glowing warm, and the trees rustling with the day's last breeze. Naruto lingered in the hallway outside Kakashi's room, a bowl of cold rice in his hands, and a question burning at the edge of his mind. He listened to the hush of turning pages, the muffled sound of breath, and something else. A quick, suspicious giggle. Naruto frowned. Kakashi never laughed, not openly. Naruto pressed his ear to the sliding door. Another faint chuckle. His guardian, the infamous stoic, was definitely laughing at something. Intrigued, Naruto pushed the door open just a crack and peered inside. Kakashi sat cross-legged on his futon, back to the wall, a book held up at eye level. The cover was glossy and orange, with bold letters Naruto couldn't quite make out from the angle, Icha something. Kakashi's mask was slightly lowered, his face slack with amusement. The sight was so out of character that Naruto stared, transfixed. Kakashi turned a page and snorted, a quiet half-choked laugh. The noise was so shocking, Naruto lost his grip on the rice bowl. It clattered loudly to the floor. Kakashi jerked upright, snapping the book shut in a blur. For a second, the mask was all that stood between them and a very embarrassing silence. "Sorry," Naruto blurted, cheeks burning as he dropped to his knees to scoop up the rice. "Didn't mean to, interrupt your, reading." Kakashi cleared his throat, the tiniest edge of panic in his voice. "It's nothing. Just strategy manuals." He slid the book behind a pillow with ninja speed. Naruto looked up, eyes wide. "Strategy, huh? Is that why your face looks weirdly happy?" Kakashi's mask seemed to grow tighter. "It's a very advanced tactical text, right?" Naruto's lips twitched. He reached for the last of the rice, glancing at the book's half-hidden title. Icha. Paradise. Is that about, like, forbidden jutsu? Kakashi froze, then coughed. "You're too young to understand the subtleties of this particular strategy." The laugh slipped out before Naruto could stop it. The room, so often cold and quiet, felt lighter than he could ever remember. Kakashi made an exasperated noise. "If you ever tell Iruka or anyone at the academy, I'll assign you double training for a month." Naruto grinned. "Deal. If you ever tell anyone about that time I fell in the river chasing a squirrel, I'll never forgive you." Kakashi's eyes softened in a way Naruto had never seen before. "I'm glad we have an understanding." Naruto hesitated, then sat down cross-legged at the foot of the bed, bowl forgotten. "Can I ask you something?" he ventured, voice small. Kakashi regarded him quietly, then nodded. "Are you really always as serious as you look? Or is there a part of you that's, normal?" For a long moment, Kakashi said nothing. He let the mask fall just a fraction, his eye turning contemplative. "I spent a long time thinking that being a ninja meant hiding everything," Kakashi admitted. "Grief, doubt, even happiness. But there are days, rare days, when I laugh at something stupid in a book, or I remember a joke from Minato-sensei. I guess that's normal for me." Naruto chewed on this. "I always thought you didn't like me. But maybe I just didn't know what to look for." Kakashi shook his head, soft amusement in his tone. "You're like me in more ways than you think. Too stubborn to give up, too proud to ask for help. Sometimes you make mistakes and pretend you didn't. Sometimes you try too hard or not enough. That's all pretty normal too. Naruto let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Even the best ninja mess up sometimes. Especially the best ninja. Kakashi's voice was gentle, almost teasing. The difference is, we get up again. A rare silence settled between them, not the old silence of distance, but something new, a comfortable quiet. Kakashi, with a half-smile in his eye, reached for the hidden book and set it on the table, face down. "Don't read that until you're older," he said, more lightly than Naruto had ever heard. Naruto grinned. "Promise." They sat together as the sun slipped below the rooftops, shadows stretching long across the floor. For the first time, Naruto saw not just a distant, unsmiling mentor, but a man with quirks and secret laughter, a man still learning how to be at peace with his own past. That night, as they shared a late snack and swapped harmless stories, Naruto understood that under the mask, behind the layers of old pain and strict rules, there really was a smile. It was rare and a little awkward, but it was his. And that, more than any lesson or praise, made Naruto feel like he belonged. The world beyond the village walls was wilder, shadows thick beneath ancient trees, the air cool and sharp with the scent of damp earth. For Naruto, missions outside Konoha were rare but precious. They offered a glimpse into a world larger than the safe patterns of training, the slow unfolding of days at home. This mission, however, was different. He and Kakashi had been sent to deliver an urgent scroll to a border outpost, a task simple enough for a seasoned Jonin and his talented ward. But unease had crept over the trip like a lingering fog. The forest was too quiet. Every snapped twig, every distant bird call made Naruto's heart beat faster. He tried to hide his nerves, recalling Kakashi's lessons. See everything. Trust nothing until you've proved it true. He let the forest fill his senses, counting the thrum of cicadas, the feel of wind against his skin, the weight of chakra humming deep within. It wasn't enough. They were ambushed at dusk. Shadows moved through the trees, masked shinobi with strange headbands, their kunai flashing. The battle was sudden, a swirl of noise and motion. Naruto fought like Kakashi had taught him, analyzing, dodging, striking when the moment was right. But he was still just a boy. One ninja slipped past, blades catching Naruto's sleeve. He tumbled, hitting the earth hard, pain sparking along his ribs. For a terrifying moment, he saw the enemy's kunai poised above him, gleaming. Kakashi moved faster than thought. A blur of gray, his Sharingan flaring, he intercepted the blow with chilling precision, sending the attacker crashing away with a single devastating strike. The fight ended as quickly as it had begun. The enemy scattered, leaving behind broken twigs and cold fear. Kakashi knelt beside Naruto, hands gentle as he checked the bruise blossoming across Naruto's ribs. For a long moment, neither spoke. Kakashi's hands trembled ever so slightly, but his voice was calm. "You're hurt?" Naruto shook his head, stubborn. "Just a scratch. I could have handled it." Kakashi's visible eye closed for a heartbeat, and when he opened it again, there was something raw there, a shadow Naruto hadn't seen in a long time. "You could have died, Naruto. You nearly," his voice caught, the mask unable to hide the fear. "You're not allowed to leave me. Not you." Naruto stared, startled by the depth of emotion in Kakashi's voice. He'd heard anger, disappointment, even dry humor, but never this. A kind of desperate grief. He wanted to speak, to make it joke, but all he managed was a nod. They traveled the rest of the way in silence. Kakashi's pace was slower, his gaze always flicking back to check on Naruto. The boy felt both embarrassed and oddly warmed by the attention, a reminder that for all Kakashi's stoicism, he cared deeply. Night fell, bringing the hush of insects and the flicker of firelight. They set up camp on a ridge, the trees casting long shadows. Naruto winced as he tried to settle against a tree, the bruise along his ribs throbbing. Kakashi sat close by, staring into the flames, lost in thought. Naruto watched him, studying the way the firelight danced on his masked face. The shadows beneath his eye looked deeper tonight, old wounds, old memories. "Sensei." Naruto's voice was softer than usual. "You said before that you lost people. Obito. Rin. My father. What happened?" Kakashi's shoulders tensed. For a moment, it seemed as if he might deflect, make a joke, change the subject. But instead, he sighed, a long tired sound, and pulled the mask down to his chin. "Obito was my teammate. He was reckless, stubborn, and always late, kind of like you, actually." There was a faint wistful smile. "He gave me the Sharingan, in the end. Saved my life. And Rin." Kakashi's voice faltered. "I failed to protect her. She died because of my mistake. I've carried that for years." Naruto watched the pain flicker across Kakashi's features, real, vulnerable, unguarded. And my dad. Kakashi's voice steadied. Minato-sensei was everything a shinobi should be, strong, wise, kind. He believed in people, even when the world was cruel. He trusted me with you because he believed I could do better than I thought I could. The fire cracked between them, throwing sparks into the darkness. Naruto sat silent, trying to imagine the weight of so much loss, the way those ghosts must haunt every step. It hurts, doesn't it? Naruto whispered. Losing people. Kakashi nodded, slow and solemn. Every day. But you learn to carry them with you. Their lessons, their hopes. That's how you honor them. By living. Naruto wrapped his arms around his knees, hugging close the warmth of the fire, the heaviness of Kakashi's confession. I don't want you to lose anyone else, either, he said quietly. Especially not me. The smile, small and tired but true, tugged at Kakashi's lips. Then promise me something. Don't be reckless just to prove you're strong. Be smart. Stay alive. That's the only way you'll ever protect the people you care about. Naruto nodded, the promise settling in his bones. I will. I won't leave you behind. Ever. They sat in silence, the ghosts of all teammates and lost loved ones flickering in the firelight. For the first time, Naruto understood that love was not just in laughter and comfort, but in shared pain and vulnerability. The next morning, the sun rose over the trees, burning away the mists. They packed up camp, the air between them lighter, the bond they shared woven even tighter for the shadows they'd braved together. Kakashi glanced at Naruto, visible eye crinkling with pride. Ready. Naruto straightened, ignoring the ache in his side, and grinned. Ready. Together, they started back toward the village, teacher and student, father and son, carrying their ghosts but walking forward, side by side. The storm had washed Konoha clean the night before, leaving the air sharp and alive. The training field, still wet, shimmered in the slanting light of early morning. Naruto was there before Kakashi, kunai spinning in his fingers, mind whirring with questions that wouldn't leave him alone. He'd heard stories in the academy, whispers of jutsu so powerful they were almost legend. The Rasengan. Some said the fourth Hokage had invented it. Others claimed it could shatter mountains. Naruto, newly aware of his parentage, had latched onto the name with a kind of fever. If his father had created it, shouldn't he know it? Wasn't it his birthright? Kakashi arrived, moving with his usual lazy grace, but Naruto caught a subtle change, a sense of anticipation, the faintest smile beneath the mask. Up early? Kakashi called, stretching his arms overhead. Plotting world domination already. Naruto grinned, unable to contain his excitement. Sensei, teach me something new. Something only the Hokage could do. Kakashi raised an eyebrow, amused. Ambitious, aren't we? What did you have in mind? Naruto's voice came out in a rush. Rasengan. For a heartbeat, the field went utterly quiet. Kakashi's face shifted, surprise, then reflection, then a slow, sad pride. You heard about that, did you? Naruto nodded, face alight. I want to try. I have to. If Dad could do it. Kakashi regarded him for a long moment, then nodded. All right. But you'll see, it's not about power. It's about control. Focus. Tactics. You ready for a challenge? Naruto bounced on the balls of his feet, eager and determined. I'm ready for anything. The Rasengan training was unlike anything Naruto had done before. Kakashi explained each step. The first was rotation, molding chakra into a tight, swirling sphere. The second was power, fueling it with enough energy to keep the form from collapsing. The third, and hardest, was containment, holding all that force, shaping it, not letting it explode too soon. Kakashi demonstrated, a sphere of raw chakra forming in his palm, spinning so fast that the air itself seemed to bend around it. Naruto tried, over and over. His chakra wobbled, fizzled, sputtered out of control. He could barely manage the first stage. He grew frustrated, battered by failure, his hands shaking from the effort. Kakashi stood behind him, watchful but patient. It's not about brute force. It's about feeling the energy, shaping it. Don't just push, listen. Naruto's first attempts ended with bursts of chakra scattering into the air. Once, the ball formed, weak, shaky, then exploded, sending Naruto tumbling into the mud. He sat up, splattered and blinking, and for the first time, laughed at his own failure. You'll get it, Kakashi said, kneeling beside him. It took your father years to master it. But once you do, you'll see, strength isn't just about destruction. It's about using power wisely. The days blurred together, each one spent chasing the spinning, elusive Rasengan. Kakashi set up obstacles, forcing Naruto to adapt. Moving targets, flickering lights, surprise distractions. You need to learn when to use your power, not just how, he reminded him. It's not enough to know a technique, you have to know why. Naruto learned to think ahead, strategize. He watched Kakashi's demonstrations, noting every detail. He imagined battles, replayed his failures, analyzed what he'd missed. For the first time, his mind raced alongside his fists. At night, bruised but exhilarated, he found himself reflecting. He remembered Iruka's kindness, Kiba's jokes, the wary respect of the villagers. He thought about Kakashi's haunted stories by the campfire, the weight of being a vessel for the Nine Tails, the legacy of a father he'd never known. He realized his journey wasn't about chasing someone else's shadow, it was about forging his own path. A week later, after dozens of failures and one near-disastrous explosion, Naruto stood in the field at sunset, hands cupped, chakra swirling. He drew a deep breath, quieting the rush of doubt. He pictured the Rasengan, tight, contained, spinning with purpose. The ball formed in his palm, imperfect, wavering, but real. For a moment, it hovered, humming with energy, before Naruto released it into the ground, where it fizzled into sparks. He let out a whoop of triumph. Kakashi, watching from the porch, let his mask fall just a fraction, pride shining in his eye. "You're getting closer," Kakashi called. "Remember, any fool can destroy. Only a true shinobi can create something lasting." Naruto grinned, heart soaring. He felt the bond between them deepen, not just as student and teacher, but as kindred spirits, each carrying their own shadows, forging their own light. That night, as stars spilled across the sky, Naruto stared up from his bed, hands aching but spirit light. The Rasengan was still unfinished, but he understood, at last, that the journey mattered as much as the goal. He drifted into dreams of swirling chakra and laughter, his own, and his father's, knowing he would face tomorrow stronger, and a little wiser, than before. The clear, crisp wind swept through the woods as Kakashi led Naruto away from the usual training field, deeper into the wild tangle of roots and green. The air was brisk and clean, and the early morning sun glinted on leaves still damp with dew. Naruto moved lightly through the brush, his exhaustion from Rasengan training washed away by anticipation. Today, he could feel, would be different. They stopped in a small glade, circled by stones and shaded by ancient trees. Kakashi took off his hit eye 8, revealing the scarred red glow of his Sharingan. The familiar eye spun, capturing every movement, every detail of the world around them. "Today," Kakashi said quietly, "I'm going to show you what it means to analyze, adapt, and evolve." Naruto's heart thudded in his chest. The Sharingan was the stuff of legend, he'd only glimpsed it in stories, and in battle, it seemed invincible. But standing here, with the sun in his eyes and Kakashi's gaze fixed on him, Naruto felt the weight of a challenge greater than any before. Kakashi moved without warning, a blur of movement, a flicker at the edge of vision. Naruto lunged to defend, but he was already too late. Kakashi's wooden kunai tapped him on the shoulder. Again. And again. "Predict me," Kakashi said. "Watch not just what I do, but what I might do. Find the gaps, use your head." This is what the Sharingan teaches, not just imitation, but the art of learning from everything, everyone. They sparred for hours. Kakashi moved like water, every step and strike flowing into the next. Naruto charged, split into a cluster of shadow clones, but each was outmaneuvered, each pattern read and broken down before it could become a threat. Exhausted and gasping, Naruto sat in the grass, frustration simmering. "You make it look so easy. My clones can't keep up, my tricks never fool you." Kakashi offered a rare, soft smile. "My Sharingan is just a tool. Your real strength is in how you use what you learn. When you're beaten, do you see it as failure, or a lesson?" Naruto huffed. "Feels like both." But Kakashi said, "That means you're growing." He had Naruto throw kunai with his offhand, sprint blindfolded through a maze of obstacles, and run through tactical puzzles. Sometimes Kakashi stepped in to demonstrate a genjutsu, showing how shinobi could fool all 5 senses. Sometimes, he merely watched, arms folded, while Naruto worked it out for himself. Day after day, Naruto's movements sharpened. He learned to analyze his own clones, watching how each acted, what each missed. He began to use their unique perspectives. One would serve as a distraction, another to gather intelligence, a third to set a subtle trap. The shadow clones were no longer just blunt force, they were tools for strategy, for creativity. The days blurred into one another, a whirlwind of bruised knuckles, hard lessons, and breakthroughs. Naruto's clones became more resourceful. They'd use sticks as makeshift weapons, scatter leaves to blind an opponent, even mimic Kakashi's own moves back at him. Every defeat turned into a question, every mistake an opportunity. Kakashi, for his part, let pride flicker through his usual reserve. He would never say it outright, but his eye curved more often, his corrections lighter, his silences companionable rather than daunting. Watching Naruto invent, adapt, and push past his limits reminded him of his own days as a student, reckless, hungry, always reaching for the next challenge. One afternoon, after a particularly wild exercise that left both of them covered in dirt and panting, Naruto flopped back on the grass, laughing for the sheer joy of it. "Did you see that last clone? He almost got you." Kakashi nodded, a small smile beneath the mask. "Almost." Naruto propped himself up, serious for a moment. "Why do you let me try so many times? Even when I mess up?" Kakashi looked up through the trees, thoughtful. "Because a shinobi is not made by his victories, but by his persistence. Your father never stopped learning. Neither did Obito or Rin. And neither will you." Naruto grinned. He felt it then, the subtle but powerful connection between them, not just as sensei and student, but as equals in the endless pursuit of growth. Word began to spread quietly about the strange way Naruto trained. Iruka watched from the academy window, bemused as Naruto led teams of his own clones on missions across the schoolyard, working together to solve puzzles, outsmart bullies, and win games through strategy rather than sheer strength. Some classmates watched with envy, others with awe. Even Sasuke, always aloof, watched Naruto with a new calculating interest. Naruto didn't mind the attention. For the first time, he felt not just noticed, but respected. On the walk home, as the day faded to dusk, Kakashi handed Naruto a rice ball, unwrapping his own with his usual lazy grace. "You know, Kakashi mused, I never thought I'd be proud to be copied." Naruto nearly choked on a mouthful of rice. Wait, are you saying you're?" Kakashi cut him off with a wave of his hand, but his eyes smiled. "Don't let it go to your head." Naruto smiled wide, the warmth of Kakashi's subtle approval filling his chest. That night, as he watched the moon rise from his window, Naruto felt something shift inside him, a quiet pride, earned not through brute strength, but through learning, failing, and trying again. He was not just a vessel of a legend, not just the son of the fourth. He was becoming something new, his own shinobi, with a legacy all his own. And for the first time, he sensed that Kakashi, father, teacher, shadow, was proud of the boy he was becoming. Rain clouds gathered over the western border of the land of fire, turning the world to shades of steel and green. Naruto moved with careful steps along the muddy trail, kunai tucked in his palm, the presence of danger prickling at his skin. Ahead, Kakashi led with a wary calm, pausing often to listen for the telltale rustle of hidden foes. This was not a drill. This was Naruto's first true mission. Escorting a courier to a border outpost rumored to be stalked by rogue ninjas. The forest felt different on this side of Konoha, deeper, older, the shadows heavy and watchful. Naruto scanned the undergrowth as Kakashi had taught him, mapping every root and hollow, every bird call and patch of silence. The attack came at dusk. A barrage of shuriken whistled through the trees. Kakashi called out, "Scatter." And Naruto dove, rolling behind a fallen log as masked figures melted from the gloom. The world shrank to sharp sounds. The clang of metal, the thud of feet, the rough voices of enemy shinobi. Naruto's heart hammered. He forced himself to think, what would Kakashi do? He created 2 shadow clones with a flash, sending one left as a feint, the other right to draw fire. The attackers hesitated, thrown off by his unpredictability. Naruto's real self circled, breathing hard, scanning for weaknesses. He found the courier pinned against a tree, a blade pressed to his throat. Move and he dies. The rogue spat. Kakashi appeared from nowhere, kunai pressed to the enemy's back, his voice quiet and cold. "Let him go, and you live." The tension was razor sharp. Naruto, crouched in the shadows, felt the moment teeter. In training, Kakashi had taught him about mercy, about the razor's edge between justice and survival. But now, faced with real blood, real fear, Naruto trembled. He could rush in, maybe take the rogue by surprise. Or he could wait, trust his sensei, risk the courier's life. He breathed out, mind racing. He signaled his nearest clone, who kicked a loose branch into the undergrowth, drawing the rogue's eyes for a split second. Kakashi seized the opening, disarming the attacker in a flicker. Naruto's clones leapt, pinning the rogue's arms as Kakashi swept the courier to safety. It was over in an instant. But Naruto stood frozen, staring at the defeated enemy at his feet. The rogue's eyes were wild, teeth bared. Naruto lifted his kunai, hand shaking. "Don't move," he said, voice cracking. The moment stretched, the man was helpless. Naruto could end it. He could finish the fight, just as he'd been taught. But he remembered Kakashi's words. A shinobi's strength is not in how many they defeat, but in the lives they choose to spare. Naruto lowered his kunai. "Leave." If I see you again, I won't be so nice. The rogue stared, bewildered, then stumbled into the woods, vanishing like a bad dream. Kakashi watched, unreadable. For a moment, Naruto feared he'd failed, that he'd shown weakness in the face of real danger. But as they regrouped, Kakashi's hand landed on his shoulder, steady and warm. You did well, Kakashi said, voice low. Mercy takes more strength than killing. Never forget that. The courier, still shaken, bowed to Naruto in gratitude. You saved my life, he whispered. Naruto felt pride and shame in equal measure, pride for choosing mercy, shame for the moment he'd wanted to lash out, to prove himself strong in the wrong way. But as they moved on, the weight of the lesson settled deep inside him. Night fell in the woods, the threat receded, but Naruto's mind was restless. As they camped by a small fire, he watched Kakashi tend his wounds, silent in his own thoughts. Sensei, Naruto finally asked, how do you know when to fight and when to show mercy? Kakashi stared into the flames, his voice rough. There's no rulebook. You trust your instincts, your training, and your heart. The world will tell you that a ninja is only as good as the enemies they defeat. But your father believed differently. He saved who he could, when he could. So did Obito and Rin. So do I. Naruto hugged his knees, thinking. He remembered the wild look in the rogue's eyes, the way his own hand had shaken, the feeling that mercy was somehow harder than violence. I was scared, he admitted softly. But I didn't want to become someone I hated. Kakashi's eye curved in that way Naruto now knew meant pride. That's what makes you strong. Not just your power. Your choices. Naruto nodded, letting the lesson settle in his bones. By dawn, the air had turned clear and cold. As they walked back toward Konoha, Kakashi's silence was companionable, not distant. Naruto felt changed, a little older, a little wiser, not just for having faced blood, but for having chosen not to spill it. He knew now that the path of a shinobi was not drawn in black and white, but in shades of gray, shaped by the choices he made, and by the man who walked beside him. And somewhere, deep down, Naruto understood. He was ready for whatever would come next, not because he was fearless, but because he was willing to choose mercy, even when it was hardest. Sunlight spilled over Konoha, gilding the tiled roofs and bustling streets. News of the border mission spread quietly, the details whispered and distorted with every retelling. The boy with wild blonde hair, silent as a shadow, outsmarting rogue ninja. Kakashi Hatake, the copy ninja, moving with ghostly precision. At first, most dismissed it as rumor, just another wild tale to spice the monotony of peace. But the facts, undeniable, began to surface. Naruto walked the streets with a new awareness, noticing the way heads turned as he passed. Some villagers offered wary glances, their old suspicion unsoftened. But others nodded in grudging respect, murmurs of Hatake's boy trailing behind him like a new kind of shadow. Iruka noticed the shift immediately. At the academy, the students gathered in tight circles, talking in low, excited voices about Naruto's mission. Kiba grinned, nudging Naruto's shoulder with easy camaraderie. Heard you took down 2 guys with just a couple of clones. Kiba crowed. Naruto shrugged, suddenly shy, unused to the spotlight. It was nothing. Sensei did most of the work. Shikamaru, lying on the roof tiles, looked over with narrowed eyes. You're different, Uzumaki. You don't get rattled anymore. It's troublesome. Chaoji, always gentle, offered Naruto half of his snack. I wish I could be that brave, he said, mouth full. Naruto laughed, and for a moment, the old ache of loneliness loosened its hold. But beneath the pride was a quieter uncertainty. Was it respect or fear, they felt? Was he becoming the kind of shinobi the village needed, or just another weapon? The adults were slower to change. In the market, an old woman who'd once shooed him away, now pressed an extra dango into his hand, muttering about earning his keep. A pair of shopkeepers watched him pass, their voices hushed. He's Hatake's charge, isn't he? Not like the other orphans. Never seen a boy so quiet. Like he's thinking 10 steps ahead. Heard he spared a rogue, too. Unusual for a kid. Naruto kept his head down, trying to ignore the attention. But the weight of it, both welcome and strange, followed him everywhere. Kakashi, for his part, seemed unaffected. He remained the same, mask in place, visible eye drifting half shut in feigned boredom as he browsed the book stalls. But Naruto caught him watching, always watching, the smallest curve of pride tugging at the corner of his eye. One afternoon, as they left a ramen stand, a group of older shinobi crossed their path, men with scarred arms and tired faces. Hatake one grunted. Your boy's making a name for himself. Kakashi nodded, a hint of humor in his voice. He's a fast learner. The man nodded back, less brusque than before. Keep him sharp. We need kids like that. Naruto blinked, stunned by the casual acceptance. For so long, he'd expected only scorn from the village. He found himself standing a little straighter, shoulders squared in unconscious pride. But not all welcomed the change. In the dark corners of Konoha, old resentments lingered. A mother pulled her daughter away as Naruto walked past, whispering, "That's the one with the fox inside. Stay clear." Naruto felt the sting, but it no longer cut so deep. The faces of Iruka, Kakashi, Kiba, and others loomed larger in his mind, proof that even in a world slow to change, hearts could shift, however grudgingly. One morning, as the academy's gates opened, a group of older boys cornered Naruto by the training dummies. Their leader, a boy with sharp eyes and a cruel mouth, sneered. "You think you're something, just cause you hang around Hatake and the teachers. You're still just a demon brat." The old fury flared in Naruto's chest. But he didn't lash out. He stood his ground, gaze steady. "I'm not what you think. I'm not your enemy." The boy spat at his feet, but the others, watching Naruto's unwavering eyes, remembering the rumors of his mercy, hesitated. No one moved to strike. Iruka appeared then, stepping between them with a stern frown. "That's enough," he said, voice hard as steel. "Naruto's done more for this village than most grown shinobi. You do well to remember that." The boys scattered, grumbling. Iruka turned to Naruto, pride and concern mingled in his gaze. "You handled that well." Naruto nodded, his voice quiet. "I'm trying to be better, sensei. For everyone." Iruka rested a warm hand on his shoulder. "You already are." Word of Iruka's public defense spread quickly. Other teachers, once cautious, began to speak openly in Naruto's favor. Even the Hokage was seen watching a class spar, his gaze thoughtful. The Sandai mate called Kakashi to his office one afternoon, his tone serious but respectful. "He's growing, Kakashi. More than we could have hoped. But be careful. The more people notice, the more enemies he'll have, in and outside the village." Kakashi bowed his head. "I'll watch him." The Hokage's eyes softened. "Perhaps he can teach us all something." That evening, Naruto and Kakashi shared a meal of grilled fish and rice. As the last of the daylight faded, Naruto looked up from his bowl. "Do you think people will ever stop being afraid of me?" Kakashi regarded him, the lamplight painting his eye gold. "Some will. Some won't. What matters is how you live. How you treat others. That's the legacy you leave, Naruto, not fear, but hope." Naruto nodded, feeling the truth of it settle inside him. Outside, the village was restless with change, ripples spreading from every step Naruto took. Not all wounds had healed. Not all eyes were kind. But the walls that had once trapped him were beginning to crack, letting in something new, a light he had never dared to hope for. And for the first time, Naruto believed he might one day belong not just to himself, or to Kakashi, but to the village as well. The sky over Konoha was bright and cloudless as Naruto entered the academy training yard, the grass still wet with dew. His steps were light, but a quiet tension threaded through his posture, a sense of being watched, weighed, measured. Today was the day the advanced classes sparred, and all of the village's rising stars had gathered to see who would stand out. Among them stood Sasuke Uchiha. Naruto had always known of Sasuke. The quiet, sharp-eyed prodigy, last scion of his clan. But today, as he caught Sasuke's gaze across the yard, he felt something different. There was curiosity in the other boy's eyes, an almost magnetic pull. It was not the open scorn or envy Naruto had grown used to, but a kind of wary interest. Naruto felt the same interest mirrored within himself. Sakura was already there, watching both boys with a mix of concern and excitement. Even the teachers seemed on edge, as if waiting for something to crackle in the air. Kakashi lingered at the back, arms crossed, eye half-lidded but sharp as a kunai. He watched not just Naruto but the entire field, seeing all the lines of rivalry and friendship forming, and old memories flickered behind his mask. The call for sparring partners went out, and Naruto found himself across from Sasuke. They bowed in perfect unison, eyes locked, and the crowd around them seemed to fade away. For Naruto, this wasn't just about winning. It was about proving who he was now, the boy raised by Kakashi, shaped by lessons of patience and strategy as much as willpower. Sasuke's movements were fluid and precise. He tested Naruto with a feint, a flash of shuriken, and a quick taijutsu combo. Naruto met each with a confidence that was quieter, more focused than the brashness his classmates expected. He moved with subtle calculation, letting Sasuke think he was predictable, then shifted, used a clone for a blindside block, swept Sasuke's feet out from under him. The crowd gasped. Sasuke recovered instantly, eyes narrowed in surprise. A spark flared between them, not just rivalry, but a kind of challenge that spoke to something deeper. Two boys shaped by loss, determined to stand out for reasons they could barely name. Naruto saw himself in Sasuke's relentless drive, saw his own loneliness reflected in the others' guarded silences. And Sasuke, watching the subtle intelligence behind Naruto's defenses, realized for the first time that there was more to this demon vessel than anyone had told him. They traded blows, neither gaining a clear edge. Sasuke pushed harder, faster, testing not just Naruto's strength, but his mind. Naruto responded in kind, using Kakashi's lessons, anticipating, adapting, letting Sasuke's overconfidence become his own opening. They ended, finally, with Sasuke pinning Naruto's arm and Naruto with a kunai at Sasuke's neck, both frozen in a deadlock, grinning despite themselves. Iruka called the match, voice thick with awe. Draw. The students erupted in shouts. For a heartbeat, Naruto met Sasuke's gaze and felt a rush of exhilaration, so this is what it means to have a rival. Afterward, Sakura approached, torn between pride and worry. That was amazing, Naruto. I didn't know you could fight like that. Naruto rubbed the back of his head, sheepish. Kakashi-sensei's training. He makes you think as much as fight. Sasuke lingered, shadow at the edge of the group. He spoke quietly, only to Naruto. You're not like the others. Where did you learn to fight like that? Naruto hesitated, then nodded toward Kakashi. He taught me to watch, not just hit. To see beyond what's in front of you. A thoughtful frown creased Sasuke's brow. Maybe you'll actually be worth my time. Naruto grinned, a touch of old mischief breaking through. Same to you, Sasuke. For both, the rivalry had begun, not a clash of hate, but the spark of steel sharpening steel. News of the match spread through the academy and the village. Some whispered about the return of old power, of two orphans with haunted eyes, their fates tangled from the beginning. The grown-ups remembered Team Minato, and in Naruto and Sasuke, saw echoes of bonds once lost. Kakashi felt it most keenly. Watching the boys, he saw not only Minato and Obito, but something entirely new. He recognized the fragile hope of friendship, the danger and promise of competition. He wondered, could they do better this time? Could they be stronger for each other, rather than destroy themselves in rivalry? That night, Kakashi called Naruto to the porch, the two of them sitting side by side beneath the stars. Sasuke will be good for you, Kakashi said, voice quiet. He'll push you to grow. But remember, rivalry can build you up, or tear you down. Learn from each other. Don't lose sight of what matters. Naruto listened, the words settling into the spaces left by old wounds. I want to beat him, he admitted, but I also want to understand him. He looks so alone sometimes. Kakashi nodded, memories flickering in his eye. Everyone carries their own shadows, Naruto. The trick is to not let them swallow the light. At dawn, the two boys met again at the training field, this time not as enemies, but as something more complicated. Rivals, and maybe, someday, friends. Naruto saw, with a jolt, that his journey was no longer a lonely one. And as Kakashi watched, he allowed himself a rare moment of hope. That these two might rewrite the story he'd lived through once before, forging a legacy stronger than loss. The sun rose over Konoha, bright and new, as two futures, one of shadow, one of light, began to walk the same path. The sun rose over the Hokage monument, gilding Konoha's rooftops with copper and fire. Today, the village brimmed with expectation, an ancient quiet excitement as new Genin teams were to be announced. For Naruto, standing in front of the academy's old wooden doors, it felt like the world had narrowed to a single point. Team 7. He found himself sandwiched between Sasuke, silent and sharp as a blade, and Sakura, his anxious glances bounced between her teammates. Naruto's own heart thudded, not with nerves, but with anticipation sharpened by years of Kakashi's training. He had changed. The village had changed. Now, he wanted to see what came next. The doors slid open. Iruka called them in. As the other students found their teams, Naruto's world contracted around a single announcement. Team 7, Uchiha Sasuke, Haruno Sakura, and Uzumaki Naruto. Your Jonin leader is Hatake Kakashi. The current of surprise rippled through the room. Sasuke raised an eyebrow. Sakura blinked. Naruto couldn't help the grin spreading across his face. Kakashi, who entered just then, nodded at Iruka, then at his students, his eye lingering a fraction longer on Naruto. But here, in the open, his face was all business, the familiar mask in place. Outside, as teams scattered to meet their sensei, Team 7 gathered under a tree on the village green. Sakura fidgeted, uncertain. Sasuke stood with arms crossed, assessing. Naruto, for once, just listened. Kakashi leaned against the trunk, Icha held with deceptive laziness. We'll start with something simple, he said. Introduce yourselves. Say what you like, dislike, and your dreams for the future. Sakura went first, all nervous energy. I like studying and, she glanced at Sasuke, cheeks pink, spending time with friends. I dislike people who bully others. My dream is to become a strong kunoichi and, maybe become Hokage's advisor one day. Sasuke's voice was cold, certain. I like training. I dislike weakness. My dream is to become strong enough to restore my clan. When it was Naruto's turn, he surprised himself. I like learning new things. I dislike people who judge before they know the truth. My dream is to become someone the village can believe in, not just because of power, but because I protect them. Kakashi listened, the tiniest flicker of pride warming his visible eye. Good. You'll need each other for what comes next. They began with the bell test, a tradition in Konoha but, for Naruto, laced with extra meaning. Kakashi stood before them, two small silver bells dangling from his fingers, the sunlight glinting on their surface. Your task is simple. Take these bells from me. If you fail, you go back to the academy. Sasuke's lips curled into a challenge. Sakura swallowed. Naruto met Kakashi's gaze, searching for a hint of guidance, and caught the subtlest of nods, an old, silent understanding passing between them. The test began. Sasuke attacked head-on, swift and aggressive, his shuriken cutting through air. Kakashi evaded with almost bored elegance. Sakura tried to circle, using cover, her movements careful but predictable. Naruto hung back, mind racing. Kakashi's words echoed. Watch, wait, adapt. He signaled quietly, tossing a pebble where Sakura would see. She glanced at him, confused. Sasuke caught the signal as well. For a moment, the three of them hesitated, then, unspoken, a plan formed. Naruto's clone darted out, feinting to draw Kakashi's eye. Sasuke used the opening to strike from the left, while Sakura snuck behind, aiming for the bells. Kakashi's mask hid his surprise, but his Sharingan flickered as he deflected each attack. But Naruto kept them moving, never attacking alone, always pulling them back into formation. At first, Sasuke resisted, but quickly saw the wisdom. Sakura's confidence grew as she realized she was part of a real team. Kakashi pushed harder, faster, testing them. Finally, as the sun rose higher, Naruto's clone lunged and was dispelled, only to reveal Sasuke behind, snatching one bell, while Sakura managed to grab the other. Kakashi stepped back, dusting off his hands. For a rare, unguarded moment, his mask curved into what could only be a smile. Well done. You worked together. That's what matters most. Sasuke nodded, eyes gleaming, not just with pride, but with the dawning awareness that he was not the only one worth watching. Sakura beamed, her earlier nerves forgotten. Naruto, breathless and muddy, caught Kakashi's gaze, a silent message passing between them. You did it your way. As the day ended, Team 7 sat beneath the tree, eating boxed lunches. The sun filtered through the branches, painting them in dappled gold. Sakura leaned back, laughing at a joke Naruto made. Sasuke rolled his eyes but didn't move away. Kakashi watched, content in his silent way, seeing a new pattern take shape, a pattern not of his old team's tragedy, but of hope and possibility. Naruto gazed up through the leaves, the light dappling his face, and felt, for the first time, a sense of belonging so deep it hurt. He was no longer just a vessel, or a student, or an outcast. He was part of something living, something greater, a team. And beneath it all, he carried the lessons Kakashi had given him. Patience, strategy, the strength of quiet bonds. The old shadows were not gone, but the sunlight between them had never felt brighter. The road to the land of waves shimmered in the summer heat, dusty and sun-soaked, the distant forests humming with insects. Team 7 moved as one. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura marching side by side, Kakashi bringing up the rear, his book open, and his eye lazily half shut. For all its apparent calm, there was an edge to every step, a current of nerves, anticipation, and the awareness that their first true mission was far beyond D-rank chores. They were to escort Tazuna, an irritable old bridge builder, safely to his home and the construction site. The man's wary eyes never left the shadows along the trail. Kakashi kept the team alert, scanning the woods with every step. Don't relax, he murmured, too quiet for Tazuna to hear. Danger comes when you least expect it. Naruto listened, mind replaying the lessons hammered into him through years of hard training. He watched the trees, measured the silence, noted every misplaced stone on the path. Sasuke's presence beside him was steady and strong, a silent promise of backup. Sakura followed their lead, clutching her bag tight, but refusing to show fear. It came suddenly, a splatter of water on the path, a blur in the brush. Two enemy ninja, shrouded in wrappings and wielding deadly, sickle-linked chains, launched from the undergrowth. Naruto's heart leapt, adrenaline surging. Kakashi moved to intercept, quick as a thought, but the attackers split, one rushing at Tazuna, the other bearing down on Sakura. Sasuke threw himself between the enemy and Sakura, parrying with a kunai. Naruto's mind spun, every lesson from Kakashi coming to the fore. Don't panic. Don't charge in blind. Analyze. He hurled a kunai at the attacker coming for Tazuna, buying Kakashi the second he needed to appear and incapacitate both enemy ninja. The entire fight was over in a flash, a blur of movement, shouting, and then silence. But Naruto's hands shook, his body thrumming with the rush of battle, and the chill of having been so close to real danger. Kakashi surveyed the team, checking for injuries. Everyone okay? Sakura nodded, breath ragged. Sasuke sheathed his kunai, eyes hard. Fine. Naruto met Kakashi's gaze. Sensei. Did we pass? Kakashi's visible eye crinkled. You remembered what you've been taught. You didn't lose your head. But Naruto could see the faintest shadow flicker in Kakashi's eye, the weight of responsibility pressing heavy. He knew Kakashi was watching him in particular, not just as a sensei, but as a parent who had nearly lost his child once before. The group pressed on, but the atmosphere was changed, tenser, more alert. Tazuna explained the truth. A powerful criminal, Gato, wanted him dead, and more attacks were certain to come. Kakashi listened, silent and grim. Night found them camped by a small fire in the woods. Sakura fussed over the maps, Sasuke polished his weapons, and Naruto sat with his knees drawn up, replaying the fight over and over. Kakashi joined him, book set aside, the fire painting strange shadows on his mask. You did well, today, Kakashi said quietly. You kept your head. You protected Tazuna. Naruto's hands trembled. But I almost froze. What if I make a mistake next time? What if someone gets hurt? Kakashi looked into the flames, voice low. No ninja is perfect. The difference between a rookie and a veteran is learning from your fear. Trust your instincts, and trust your team. Naruto nodded, the words sinking in. Sasuke joined them, dropping onto the log with casual bravado. Don't get soft, dope. We can't afford it. Naruto smirked, the old rivalry warming him. Who saved Tazuna again? Sasuke just shrugged, but there was the faintest curve of respect in his expression. Kakashi watched the exchange, relief flickering through his usual calm. He saw his old team in these children, but something new as well, Naruto's patience, Sasuke's fire, Sakura's growing confidence. He let himself hope, just for a moment, that these bonds would hold. The next day, the world changed. Mist crawled across the bridge under construction, cold and damp. Kakashi's posture shifted, every sense alert. Get ready, he whispered. A shape loomed out of the fog, a tall figure, bandaged, with a massive sword slung across his back. Zabuza Mamachi, demon of the hidden mist. Fear prickled along Naruto's skin. He remembered all his lessons. Watch. Wait. Protect the team. Zabuza's presence was like a storm. So, you're the copy ninja. And this is your team. His eyes drifted to Naruto, pausing. That boy's eyes. Not just wild, calculating. Kakashi stepped forward, mask implacable, eye cold. You'll have to get through a soul. As Zabuza's culling intent flooded the air, Naruto felt a chill run through him, but instead of panic, he reached for calm. He signaled Sasuke and Sakura with a twitch of his hand, protect Tazuna, stay close, watch my back. They fell into place with practiced ease, years of silent drills between him and Kakashi echoing in every motion. Zabuza and Kakashi clashed, titans in the mist, water and steel flashing. But it was Naruto who, in a crucial moment, used a misdirection with his clones to draw Zabuza's attention, long enough for Sasuke to slip behind, and for Kakashi to trap the mist ninja. Later, as the mist cleared and Zabuza retreated, battered but alive, Kakashi turned to his team. That was good work. You're thinking as a unit, not just individuals. Sakura exhaled in relief. Sasuke, flushed with adrenaline, gave Naruto a short nod. Not bad. Naruto grinned, heart pounding, feeling the bond between them tighten, a cord stretched to the brink, but not breaking. That night, as the village lights of waves shimmered on the river, Naruto found Kakashi on the bridge, staring into the dark. Sensei? Naruto asked quietly. Did we do enough? Kakashi looked down at his student, pride clear in the slant of his eye. You did more than enough. You showed them your heart. That's what Zabuza saw. That's what will keep this team together. Naruto felt it then, the quiet power of trust, and the beginnings of something stronger than fear. The knowledge that, whatever lay ahead, they would face it together. Far away, Zabuza nursed his wounds and remembered the look in the blonde boy's eyes. That kid, he murmured to Haku, he fights with more than rage. He's got a mind for battle. And something to protect. The true test, for all of them, was only beginning. Dawn broke over the unfinished bridge, silver light spilling through the morning mist. The air was heavy with tension. Every sound seemed sharper, the footsteps of Team 7 echoing off wet wood. Tezuna's hands shook as he laid planks and hammered nails, each clang a drumbeat for the day ahead. Naruto stood at the center of the bridge, feeling the weight of his promise settle into his bones. Kakashi's words, the lessons of mercy and strategy, all of it circled in his mind. Sasuke stood to his right, kunai in hand, jaw set in iron determination. Sakura hovered behind them, eyes wide but steady, guarding Tezuna with a fierceness that surprised even her. The fog thickened. Kakashi stepped forward, presence calm and unyielding, his mask unreadable, but his intent sharp as lightning. Stay close. Trust your training. Protect each other. Suddenly, shapes flickered in the haze, Zabuza and Haku, silent and deadly. Zabuza's sword gleamed as he stalked forward, his culling intent suffocating, while Haku's presence was ethereal, masked and graceful, a threat barely glimpsed at the edge of vision. Kakashi and Zabuza clashed in an instant, jutsu tearing through water and mist. The force of their battle rocked the bridge, spray flying, chakra singing in the air. Haku appeared before Naruto and Sasuke, ice mirrors spinning, needles glittering. You must be the one with the clever eyes, Haku murmured, voice calm and sad behind the mask. Don't force me to kill you. Sasuke bristled, ready to strike, but Naruto held up a hand. Wait. Let's think. He studied the mirrors, noting the patterns, the way Haku's reflection blurred at certain angles. Analyze. Adapt. He nodded at Sasuke, voice steady. Don't waste energy. Force him to show his real position. Together, they attacked in sequence, one clone rushing, the other guarding Tezuna, real Naruto ducking to the side. Sasuke caught on instantly, launching fire jutsu at the mirrors, forcing Haku to reposition. But Haku was faster, his needles biting skin, drawing blood. Naruto felt pain blossom along his arm, a bright cold line. Rage threatened to take him, but he fought it down, remembering Kakashi's warnings. Think. Don't just react. In the chaos, Naruto glimpsed Haku's eyes behind the mask, soft, mournful. He remembered what Kakashi had told him about mercy, about precious people. Why do you fight for him? Naruto asked, panting. Haku's gaze faltered. I have nothing else. Zabuza is my precious person. Naruto's heart twisted. So you kill for him? Even if it means becoming a tool. Haku's voice was a whisper. We are all tools, sometimes. Sasuke gasped as a needle struck home, collapsing to his knees. Something inside Naruto broke, the old loneliness, the pain of being a weapon, the fear of failing those he loved. But instead of anger, what rose in him was determination. No, Naruto said, voice fierce. I fight for my team, not as a tool, but as a friend. I'll protect them, no matter what. Chakra surged. Naruto's clones swarmed the mirrors, breaking Haku's rhythm. He leapt to Sasuke's side, shielding him from the next volley. Haku hesitated, real pain flickering across his features. You? Remind me of myself, Haku whispered. But I cannot hold back. Their battle raged, jutsu and willpower colliding, until finally Naruto, exhausted, wounded, but unbroken, landed a blow that shattered Haku's mask. For an instant, Haku's true face showed. Young, kind, so terribly sad. On the far side of the bridge, Zabuza faltered as Kakashi pressed his advantage. Haku staggered between them, torn by loyalty and love. Kakashi, recognizing the depth of Haku's devotion, called to Naruto. Mercy, Naruto. Sometimes saving a life is the hardest thing. Naruto stood over Haku, bloody but defiant. He could have finished it. But he remembered the mercy he'd shown the rogue ninja before, the lesson that true strength was in choosing who to spare. He let his hand fall. I wouldn't be like them. You still have a choice. Haku wept. Thank you. With a final, desperate surge, Haku darted back to Zabuza's side, shielding him from Kakashi's deadly attack, giving his life to save the man he loved. Zabuza crumpled, the monster's mask falling away. He looked at Haku, then at Naruto, his own eyes wet with tears. You, both of you, you're stronger than I ever was. The mist cleared. The enemy defeated, the bridge safe, but the cost heavy. Naruto knelt by Haku's side, silent tears falling. Sasuke limped over, placing a shaky hand on Naruto's shoulder. Sakura wept openly, clutching Tezuna as if afraid to let go. Kakashi stood over them all, pride and sorrow warring in his gaze. You fought as a team. You protected your precious people. Naruto nodded, voice raw. We did it together. As the village of Wave gathered to thank them, the bridge became more than wood and stone. It became a symbol of connection, of mercy, of hope. That night, as Team 7 watched the stars from a quiet hill, Naruto spoke softly, almost to himself. I swear, I'll protect my team at any cost. I won't be just a weapon. I'll be someone worth believing in. Kakashi ruffled his hair, voice gentle. You already are, Naruto. And in that moment, beneath the vast forgiving sky, Team 7 was more than a team. They were a family, wounded but unbroken, stepping forward together into the unknown. The journey home was quieter than Naruto expected. The land of waves lay behind them, Haku's sacrifice, Zabuza's tears, the bridge now standing strong against the tides. Team 7 traveled in silence at first, each member haunted by the ghosts left behind on mist-shrouded planks. Naruto trudged at the back of the group, head bowed, hands jammed in his pockets. The victory felt hollow. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Haku's soft, sorrowful smile and Zabuza's raw grief. Sakura and Sasuke walked ahead, subdued. Even Kakashi's usual lazy posture seemed forced, his visible eye troubled. As they crossed the first wooded hill outside Wave, Sakura slowed until she walked beside Naruto. She didn't speak, but her presence was enough, an anchor in the storm of his thoughts. Kakashi called a halt as dusk painted the sky orange. They camped beneath a tangle of cypress, the forest humming with insects. Firelight flickered on their tired faces. After dinner, Kakashi stood and nodded to Naruto, motioning him away from the fire. Naruto followed, heart pounding, until they found themselves alone at the edge of the trees. Kakashi's mask was shadowed, his voice quieter than Naruto had ever heard. You've seen what the world asks of a shinobi now. It's never simple. Death, mercy, impossible choices. Sometimes you'll doubt everything, even yourself. Naruto looked away. I didn't want to kill Haku. But I couldn't save him, either. No, Kakashi said softly. Some battles don't have a right answer. But you showed strength. Compassion. That's what makes you different from Zabuza, or me, when I was your age. Naruto's voice shook. Does it ever get easier? The pain. The doubt. Kakashi sat on a fallen log, hands folded in his lap. For a moment, the air between them was so heavy Naruto thought he might drown. I used to think that closing myself off was the only way, Kakashi admitted. But every time I lost someone, my father, Obito, Rin, Minato-sensei, I just built higher walls. I was alone, even surrounded by comrades. It made me strong, but brittle. You let yourself feel, even when it hurts. That's courage. Naruto chewed his lip, searching for the words. If I let myself care, won't it hurt more when I lose people? Kakashi looked at him, really looked, the weight of his own pain in his eye. Yes. But it also means you never truly lose them. You carry them with you, in your heart, in the choices you make. Naruto nodded slowly. The ache didn't disappear, but something inside him settled. Haku told me. Our bonds are what make us human. I think I understand now. Kakashi squeezed his shoulder, silent pride shining through the mask. You're already a better shinobi than you know. Back at camp, Sakura huddled close to the fire, sleep evading her. Sasuke watched the embers, brow furrowed. Naruto sat down between them, feeling, for the first time, a weight lifting from his chest. Sakura glanced at him, her voice hesitant. Do you think we did the right thing? Naruto considered, then answered honestly. We did what we could. We protected each other. I think. That's all anyone can ask. Sasuke's eyes flickered. I was weak. I let myself get trapped. Next time, I'll be stronger. Naruto punched his shoulder, not unkindly. We all will. Together. Sakura smiled, wiping her eyes. Sasuke grunted, but didn't pull away. Kakashi watched them from the edge of the firelight, his posture relaxing at last. In that moment, the bonds between them, tempered by loss, forged in battle, felt unbreakable. When Team 7 returned to Konoha, a hush fell over the village. Word of their success had already arrived. The bridge completed, Tazuna safe, 2 infamous enemies defeated. Some villagers stared in awe, others with curiosity or fear. But Iruka met them at the gate, pride lighting his face. Welcome home, heroes, he said, and for the first time, Naruto believed the word might just fit. But the praise, the attention, brought new shadows. Whispers followed Naruto wherever he went. He could feel suspicion twined with admiration in every glance, could sense, for the first time, the burden of being known. One evening, as the festival lights flickered over the village square, Naruto found himself standing alone beneath the Hokage monument. Kakashi approached, silent as always. Things will be different now, Kakashi said, not quite a warning, not quite a comfort. You're not invisible anymore. You proved your strength, but you'll need to prove your heart every day. Naruto gazed up at the faces carved in stone, his father's among them, serene and steady. I'm ready, he said quietly. I'm not afraid of the darkness. Not as long as I have people to protect, and people who believe in me. Kakashi ruffled his hair, a rare tenderness in the gesture. That's all I could ever hope for. Beneath the watchful gaze of his father's likeness, Naruto made a vow, not just to be strong, but to hold fast to the light within himself and the bonds he had forged. The ghosts would remain, but they would walk beside him, not behind. And as the festival fireworks bloomed overhead, Naruto stepped forward, a little more whole, a little less alone. Night pressed close over Konoha, stars veiled behind drifting clouds. The village never truly slept, there were always Anbu on the roofs, lanterns glowing behind shuttered windows, distant footsteps echoing in the lanes. But tonight, a deeper unease lay beneath the surface, as if the entire hidden leaf held its breath, waiting for some shadow to pass. Naruto was the first to sense the tension. He felt it in the wary way villagers glanced at him in the streets, in the hushed urgency of messengers hurrying to and from the Hokage's tower. Kakashi, returning late from a meeting, wore a gravity that no lazy posture or icha could disguise. Something's wrong, Naruto said quietly as he entered the apartment, watching his mentor drop into the armchair, one hand rubbing his temple. Kakashi glanced up, his mask more armor than comfort tonight. The Sandai wanted my counsel. There's word of movements in the north, dangerous ones. The Akatsuki are stirring. The name tasted like metal in the air. Naruto had heard the stories, rogue ninja, missing nin with monstrous power, and a hunger for the Jinchuriki. For the first time, the weight of the 9 tails inside him felt less like a secret and more like a target. Kakashi met Naruto's gaze, the seriousness in his voice cutting through the shadows. There will be eyes on you now, Naruto. Not just from within the village, but from outside. Promise me you'll be careful. Naruto hesitated, then nodded, fists clenched. I will. But I'm not afraid. Not as long as we stand together. Kakashi's eye curved, pride warming the worry in his features. That's the spirit. Days later, the Chunin exams were announced. The entire village seemed to wake from its unease, excitement flooding the markets and squares. Teams from every corner of the Land of Fire ran beyond poured into Konoha. Banners fluttered, merchants shouted, and for a moment, it felt like peace again. But beneath the surface, tension remained. Team 7 trained relentlessly. Kakashi's methods grew even more demanding. Endurance drills, mind games, tactical puzzles under pressure. Naruto, sensing the rising stakes, responded with a focus that surprised even himself. The old impatience was gone, replaced by the sharp, watchful patience Kakashi had hammered into him. One afternoon, as Naruto practiced chakra control on the rushing currents beneath the village bridge, Sasuke watched from the bank, eyes narrowed. You've changed, he observed. Naruto grinned, holding his balance as the river surged around him. Guess I finally got tired of falling behind. Sasuke leapt out, joining him midstream, their rivalry burning anew. Each tried to outlast the other, neither willing to fall first. On the shore, Sakura watched with a mixture of pride and exasperation. You two are hopeless. But Kakashi, observing from the shadows, felt a swell of pride. He saw not just students, but equals, young shinobi rising to meet the trials before them. The Chunin exams began, the written tests a battlefield of nerves and hidden genius. Naruto, never bookish, surprised everyone by working methodically, letting others make mistakes, then copying only what was needed, a lesson straight from Kakashi. Use your head before your fists. Rumors swirled about the next phase. Some said the forest of death would claim the weak. Others whispered of spies and sabotage. Kakashi met with the Sandai behind closed doors, discussing threats both external and internal. That night, as the lanterns dimmed and the village seemed at peace, Kakashi lingered on the rooftop, Naruto at his side. The world is watching, Naruto. But so am I. Whatever happens, you're not alone. Naruto looked out over the rooftops, heart steeled. Let them watch. I'll show them all. Kakashi's hand landed on his shoulder, strong and steady. That's my boy. In the coming days, the tension in the village grew, a sense of eyes everywhere, enemies in every shadow. But Team 7's bond was no longer fragile. Through trial, loss, and hard-won trust, they had become unbreakable. As Naruto closed his eyes that night, he felt the old loneliness replaced by something new, a fierce, quiet hope. The real tests were just beginning. And this time, he would face them not just as a vessel or an outcast, but as a shinobi of Konoha, carrying both shadow and light. Morning broke on the first day of the Chunin exams, spilling pale gold over Konoha's rooftops. The village buzzed with an energy that was part excitement, part dread. Teams from distant lands gathered in the academy's white entrance hall, eyes cold, postures wary. This was not just a test for promotion, it was a crucible, a stage on which the next generation of shinobi would be revealed. Naruto stepped through the gates, a cool confidence in his step that turned more than a few heads. The other competitors, expecting the loud, brash prankster they'd heard rumors of, found instead a boy whose eyes missed nothing. His movements carried the quiet discipline of countless mornings training under the copy ninja. Even his rivals noticed, most of all Sasuke, who watched Naruto's every step with a mixture of wariness and respect. Kakashi waited in the shadows of a nearby archway, arms folded, watching his students disappear into the crowd. He wore no visible badge of pride, but his single visible eye was bright with it all the same. The written portion of the exam was notorious, a test designed not for knowledge, but for cunning. Each question was a trap, each proctor a hunter. Whispered answers floated through the air. Cheaters were expelled with ruthless efficiency. Naruto stared down at the paper, mind working furiously. Around him, Sakura scribbled with mechanical precision. Sasuke, brow furrowed, observed the room for patterns. Naruto caught Kakashi's voice in his head. Think. Analyze. Never waste a move. He studied the tension in the proctor's shoulders, the pattern of erasures on the desks. He watched the flicker of eyes and the twitch of hands, reading the code of the exam hall as if it were a battlefield. When the time came to cheat, Naruto chose his moments with care, never greedy, never hasty, just a glance here, a whisper there. He left a few answers blank, certain that confidence would count more than perfection. When the final question was announced, would you risk your future as a ninja for the sake of your team? Naruto didn't hesitate. He wrote his answer in bold strokes. Always. Afterward, the halls buzzed with speculation. Some students boasted. Others trembled, their confidence already shaken. Sasuke cornered Naruto by a window, the midday light throwing sharp shadows across his face. You didn't panic, Sasuke said, eyes narrowed. Even when you didn't know the answers. Naruto shrugged. Kakashi says panic makes you predictable. I just thought about what mattered most. A reluctant smile tugged at Sasuke's lips. Maybe you're not an idiot after all. Sakura joined them, relief softening her features. We made it through the first round. But the forest of death is next. Naruto met her gaze, steady and calm. We'll get through it. Together. Kakashi watched from afar as his students regrouped, pride and worry mingling in his chest. He remembered a different exam, a different team, one lost to rivalry, pride, and pain. He saw in Naruto not just his own student, but the hope that things could be different this time. News of Naruto's poise began to ripple through the village. Iruka, watching from the stands, couldn't suppress a smile. Guy nudged him, grinning. Looks like the copy ninja's teaching style has finally rubbed off on someone. Iruka's eyes softened. He's come a long way. But this exam, this is where we see who he really is. That night, as Team 7 prepared for the second stage, Kakashi joined them by the river's edge. Fireflies danced above the water, their glow fleeting but fierce. Tomorrow's test is about more than strength, Kakashi said. You'll be pushed to your limits, body, mind, spirit. Trust yourselves. Trust each other. That's what makes a true team. Naruto, usually so eager, was quiet. What if we fail? Kakashi crouched to meet his gaze, hand on Naruto's shoulder. Then you get up and try again. The only real failure is giving up on yourself or your comrades. The river's song filled the night, and the old fears ebbed away. As they walked back to their lodgings, Naruto glanced up at the stars and made a silent promise. I will not falter. I will not be alone again. Whatever happens, I'll protect the bonds we forged. Above them, the Hokage monument glimmered in the moonlight, a silent witness to the courage of those who dared to dream. Thunder rumbled low and distant as Team 7 gathered at the mouth of the Forest of Death, the air heavy with the scent of damp earth and growing things. The forest loomed before them, its trees impossibly tall, roots and branches tangled into a living labyrinth. Naruto stood at the threshold, the rough bark of the gate under his palm, heart drumming steady and calm. 100 teams waited nearby, some tense, some cocky, some whispering rumors of monsters and legendary traps. Anko Mitarashi, all wild eyes and wolfish grin, addressed them with the warning that not all would leave the forest alive. Kakashi watched from the observation tower, hidden from sight but very present in spirit. His faith in his team was complete, but his worry for Naruto ran deeper than any parent's. He remembered his own first Chunin exams, the darkness of the trees, the way a single mistake could cost everything. Naruto glanced sideways at Sasuke and Sakura. We go in, we stick together. No glory hounding. No panic. Got it. Sasuke scoffed, but nodded. I'm not dragging you two out if you get bitten by a giant centipede. Sakura rolled her eyes. Let's just try not to die, okay? Naruto grinned, that old fire shining behind the calm. No dying. That's an order. The gates opened. The forest swallowed them. Inside, the world changed. Sound was muffled, the air thick and still. Shadows darted at the edge of vision. The ground was soft with fallen leaves and rotting wood. Every step, every breath, felt like a test. Within minutes, their first challenge came, a swarm of insects, quick and venomous, set loose by a rival team. Naruto signaled, and they leapt into practice formation. Sasuke driving the attackers back with a quick-fire jutsu, Sakura sweeping the ground for safe footing, Naruto and his clones creating a path through the chaos. They moved deeper, evading traps and skirmishing with other teams. Naruto's mind worked with crisp tactical precision, piecing together clues from the landscape, deducing enemy movements, sensing chakra signatures as Kakashi had drilled him to do. More than once, he led them away from ambushes by reading signs others would have missed, a snapped fern here, a scent of blood there. Sasuke, grudgingly, grew to trust Naruto's guidance. Sakura found her own confidence blooming, each success bolstering her courage. They found a moment's rest at a stream, the sound of water masking their quiet conversation. Sakura looked to Naruto. How did you know to double back at the fallen pine? Tracks were too fresh, Naruto said, sipping water. And the leaves didn't fit the wind. Someone was waiting there. We needed a new path. Sasuke nodded. You're not the idiot everyone thinks. Naruto grinned. Don't tell anyone. It's a secret advantage. They shared a laugh, a small, rare joy in the heart of danger. But the forest was merciless. Storms blew in, lightning turning the sky to day for a moment, then plunging them into deeper darkness. Rival teams grew desperate as hours passed. At dusk, a squad from the hidden rain cornered Team 7 at the ruins of a stone shrine. Kunai flashed, paper bombs hissed. Naruto moved on instinct and analysis, weaving his clones through the battle, creating false targets, using his own shadow as bait. Sakura protected the scroll with iron resolve, Sasuke covered her with relentless precision. At a critical moment, Naruto noticed a tiny, trembling figure hidden behind the shrine. A genin from another team, wounded and terrified, enemy or not. As the fighting peaked, Naruto made a split-second call. He dashed to cover the child, catching a rain ninja's kunai on his forearm, taking the pain but saving a life. Sasuke shouted, slicing through the last attacker. Sakura dropped to Naruto's side, binding his bleeding arm. You idiot, she whispered, voice thick, that could have killed you. Naruto only grinned, wincing. Teamwork, right? The child stared up at him, wide-eyed. Why did you help me? We're enemies. Naruto shook his head. We're all shinobi. Doesn't mean we have to act like monsters. The rescued genin fled into the night, gratitude glinting in tearful eyes. As the storm cleared and the forest fell silent, Team 7 pressed onward, wounded, weary, but more tightly bound than ever. Word of Naruto's action spread, even in the dark. A Konoha genin who saved a rival's life, who fought with tactics and heart. High above, Guy watched from his own observation post, shaking his head in admiration. That's not the Naruto I remember, he said to Iruka. He's different. Iruka nodded, pride shining in his smile. He's his own kind of shinobi now. At dawn, Team 7 stumbled out of the forest, battered but victorious, their scrolls intact. Anko met them at the gate, lips curled in a rare, genuine smile. Impressive. You've set a new standard. Sakura and Sasuke grinned, supporting Naruto between them. For a moment, all three leaned on one another, the heartbeat of the forest echoing in their veins. Above, Kakashi watched his team emerge into the light, older, stronger, and together. He felt his own heart ease, pride swelling so fierce it almost hurt. Naruto glanced up, caught Kakashi's gaze, and smiled. In the heart of darkness, they had found their own light. The sun burned bright in the arena, baking the stone stands and dusting the air with gold. The village was alive with anticipation. The Chunin exam finals had drawn crowds from every corner of the land of fire and beyond. High above, banners snapped in the wind, and every seat was filled with villagers, shinobi, and visiting dignitaries. Naruto stood at the edge of the field, heart thundering, gaze fixed on his opponent. Neji Hyuga. The prodigy of the Hyuga clan, his pale eyes steady as still water, waited with arms folded, exuding calm and superiority. Neji's words from the previous day echoed. You cannot change your fate. Weakness is in your blood. Naruto's fingers curled, but the old anger didn't come. Instead, he felt a steadiness, the patience and strategy drilled into him by Kakashi. He caught Sasuke's eye in the stands, saw Sakura's hands clutched in hope, Iruka's nervous smile, and, from the shadows of the balcony, Kakashi's silent watchfulness. The proctor raised a hand. Begin. Neji surged forward, movements precise and graceful. Naruto dodged the first strike, already analyzing. He remembered Kakashi's lessons. Don't charge blindly. Find his rhythm. Look for openings. Neji pressed the attack, gentle fist aimed to shut down Naruto's chakra. For a moment, Naruto feinted retreat, letting Neji think he was in control. But instead of backing away, Naruto pivoted, using a shadow clone to draw Neji's Byakugan gaze. The real Naruto slipped behind, launching a low kick that forced Neji to adjust. You're smarter than you look, Neji admitted, eyes narrowing. Naruto grinned. I get that a lot. They circled, testing, each adapting. The crowd held its breath as Neji landed a series of rapid blows. Naruto's arm went numb, chakra stuttering. But instead of panicking, he recalled Kakashi's mantra. Even when you're at a disadvantage, think. Naruto created a ring of clones, forcing Neji to split his focus. He watched Neji's gaze, noting where it lingered. He realized Neji's attacks, though overwhelming, were also predictable, the same patterns, the same angles, always waiting for his opponent to slip. So Naruto stopped playing by Neji's rules. He used a clone to mimic a feint, drew Neji into overcommitting, then vanished underground in a cloud of dust, surfacing behind Neji and landing a punch that sent the Hyuga tumbling. Gasps echoed through the arena. Neji recovered instantly, but there was respect in his eyes now, a flicker of uncertainty. He activated his 8 trigrams. A whirlwind of strikes meant to finish the match. Naruto weathered the storm, gritting his teeth through the pain, refusing to give up. As Neji paused, chest heaving, Naruto met his gaze. You said fate can't be changed. But every fight, every choice, it changes something. I'm not strong because of who my parents were. I'm strong because I chose to be. Neji's jaw tightened. You don't understand. I understand more than you think, Naruto replied. And I'm not alone. My strength isn't just mine. It's everyone who believed in me. That's something you can't see with your Byakugan. With the final surge, Naruto unleashed a new trick. Clones darted in every direction, drawing Neji's strikes, until the real Naruto appeared above, Rasengan spinning in his palm, a technique not perfected, but burning with resolve. He landed the hit, not to maim, but to knock Neji clear across the arena. When the dust cleared, Neji was on one knee, stunned. The proctor called it. Winner, Naruto Uzumaki. The arena exploded in cheers, disbelief, and stunned silence. For a moment, the entire village seemed to pause, watching Naruto with new eyes. Sasuke grinned, shaking his head. Sakura screamed with joy. Even stoic elders in the crowd muttered approval. Iruka wept openly, pride radiating. From the balcony, Kakashi's masked smile was visible even from afar. He nodded once, subtle, but for Naruto, as good as 1,000 words. Naruto helped Neji to his feet. You can change, Neji. Don't let your eyes blind you to what's possible. Neji stared at him, expression complex. Perhaps. Fate is not as absolute as I believed. After the match, Naruto wandered through the village in a daze. Vendors waved, children ran up to him, calling his name. The old suspicion was still there in some faces, but something new was blooming, respect, even hope. Kakashi found him by the river, skipping stones. He sat beside Naruto, gaze soft. You fought brilliantly. Not just with power, but with empathy. That's what makes you truly strong. Naruto smiled, the tension easing from his shoulders. I wanted to prove I'm more than the demon fox. More than just your student. Kakashi ruffled his hair, a rare pride in his voice. You're more than that. You're Naruto Uzumaki, a shinobi Konoha can believe in. As the sun set, painting the river gold, Naruto felt the weight of his journey, the pain, the training, the hope and the heartbreak. For the first time, the village looked back at him and saw not a vessel, not a shadow, but a new kind of hero. And he knew, deep in his heart, that this was only the beginning. Dusk fell fast on Konoha, the light fading behind the Hokage monument, as the village brimmed with celebration. The finals of the Chunin exams had concluded in a swirl of cheers and disbelief. Naruto's victory over Neji had become the talk of every market and tea house. Yet beneath the festival lanterns, a chill ran through the shadows. The air itself seemed charged, as if the village waited for a storm no one else could see. Kakashi felt it first, a subtle shift in the wind, an unease honed by years on the knife's edge. He watched from the rooftops, showering and scanning for threats, always returning to the movements of his students below. Naruto, still flushed with triumph and disbelief, was surrounded by classmates and villagers, each new voice adding another layer to the surreal feeling that maybe, just maybe, he belonged. But even as he laughed and deflected praise, his senses tingled with a familiar, uneasy anticipation. The warning came in a scream, high, sharp, cut short by the boom of exploding tags. The festival square erupted into chaos as masked figures, sound and sand shinobi, descended on the crowd, kunai glinting. Naruto's training kicked in. He scanned for allies. Sasuke was already moving to intercept a pair of attackers, Sakura dragging terrified children to cover. In the midst of it all, Naruto found Kakashi's gaze across the plaza. A silent signal flashed between them. Go. Kakashi leapt down, landing with fluid violence, disabling a sound ninja with a twist and a flicker of Sharingan. Team 7, regroup and defend the villagers. Prioritize civilians. I'll hold the west flank. Naruto nodded, adrenaline burning away the last of his celebration. He barked orders, voice crisp and steady, rallying the scattered genin. With me. We hold the square, protect the wounded. Smoke thickened the air, cries rising and falling as the invaders pressed in. Naruto's mind raced, recalling every lesson: find the weak point, disrupt the enemy's rhythm, never let fear drive you. His clones darted into alleys, drawing fire away from trapped villagers. Sakura used genjutsu to sow confusion among the enemy. Sasuke, fierce and relentless, carved a path through the chaos to Naruto's side. But the attack was only a diversion. A heavier presence pulsed at the edge of Naruto's senses, ominous, wrong. He spun to find a masked figure moving toward the Hokage's balcony, dark chakra swirling around him. Orochimaru. Kakashi, finishing off another squad, saw Naruto's gaze shift. He appeared at his student's side, breathing hard. This is your mission, Naruto. I'll cover you. You have to warn the Sandaime. The village needs you, now. Naruto froze. This was bigger than any test, any mission he'd known. Fear gripped him for an instant, but Kakashi's voice, steady, calm, familiar, cut through the panic. Remember who you are, Naruto. You've trained for this. Trust yourself and your team. With a sharp nod, Naruto tore off through the rooftops, Sasuke and Sakura on his heels. They dodged explosions, leapt falling tiles, and intercepted enemy after enemy. For the first time, Naruto led not just with bravado, but with purpose, coordinating attacks, protecting his team, never losing sight of the mission. They reached the Hokage's tower just as Orochimaru's jutsu flared, a barrier springing up around the Sandaime and his old pupil. Genin and Chunin clashed below. Naruto knew he could not break the barrier, but he could rally the defenders, coordinate evacuations, fill the gaps where other jonin had fallen. He found himself giving orders to shinobi twice his age: reinforce the south street, evacuate the academy. Sakura, triage with the medics. Sasuke, with me, let's cut them off at the east gate. Sasuke shot him a fierce, proud look. Don't get cocky, dope. We're not finished yet. For hours, they fought in the ruined streets, pushing back wave after wave. Naruto's tactics, traps, misdirection, clone feints, turned the tide at critical moments. Kakashi, from the rooftops, watched with a pride that tightened his chest. This was no longer the lonely, reckless child he'd taken in, but a shinobi leading others through the fire. As dawn broke over the battered village, the invaders finally broke and fled. Naruto stood in the shattered square, clothes torn, breath ragged, blood, his and others, spattering his arms. Around him, villagers emerged from hiding, eyes wide with a new respect, relief, and awe. Kakashi appeared at his side, exhausted but smiling beneath the mask. You did well. Konoha stands because of you. Naruto shook his head, voice hoarse. Because of us. Kakashi squeezed his shoulder, the touch heavy with unspoken love. You led when it mattered. That's all anyone can ask. In the wake of the attack, as medics tended the wounded and the Sandaime's fate was mourned, word of Naruto's leadership spread like wildfire. The boy raised by Kakashi, once shunned, now hailed as a hero, had helped save his home. But Naruto felt the cost. As he watched the sunrise, exhaustion crashed in, mingled with loss and pride. He knew darkness would come again. He knew old fears and old wounds would not vanish overnight. But he also knew, with a certainty he had never felt before, that he could stand in the face of any storm, not alone, but with his team, with Kakashi, with the bonds that no enemy could break. And in the hush of the new morning, Naruto dared to hope, not just for survival, but for a future he could help shape with both his heart and mind. Konoha was quiet in the aftermath of battle, a stillness so complete it seemed to ring in the air. The village was changed. Buildings scorched, banners torn, the scent of smoke and medicine drifting on the wind. Yet beneath the scars, something new was stirring, a sense of resolve, the whisper that this time, darkness had not won. Naruto sat atop the Hokage monument, legs swinging over the edge, gaze drifting from the healing village below to the horizon where dawn was just breaking. His hands were bandaged, his uniform stained from a night spent helping the wounded and organizing rescue teams. The shouts of his name still echoed in his ears, but they felt distant, almost unreal. He heard footsteps behind him, light and measured, the familiar hush of Kakashi's presence. The Jonin joined him in silence, letting the quiet stretch between them, watching the golden light spill over broken roofs and bustling shinobi. For a long time, neither spoke. At last, Naruto broke the silence. Did you ever think we'd get here? That the village would call me hero? Kakashi's visible eye crinkled in a way that, for once, needed no mask to soften it. You earned it, Naruto. Not because you're strong, but because you chose to be better, again and again. Even when no one was looking. Naruto pulled his knees up, hugging them. I keep thinking about everything that happened, the Sandaime, the villagers, the enemies we fought. Part of me wonders if it'll ever really be enough. Or if I'll always be chasing something. Kakashi sat down, their shoulders almost touching. We all chased something. For years, I chased ghosts. Regret. A sense of duty I thought I could never live up to. He paused, voice softening. You showed me something different. That it's possible to let go of old pain. To love and still go on. Naruto was quiet, watching his breath cloud in the morning chill. I used to think if I became Hokage, if I was just strong enough, everyone would have to notice me. But now, I want more than that. I want to protect what we've built. I want to be the kind of shinobi who can hold the light and the darkness, and not let either swallow me. Kakashi smiled, pride and sorrow mingling in his gaze. That's what it means to grow. To carry your shadows with you, but never let them weigh you down. Below, the village slowly came alive. Iruka marshaled students to help with the cleanup, Guy's laughter echoed as he challenged Chunin to races, and Sasuke, silent but steady, joined Sakura as they handed out supplies to the weary. Naruto watched them, warmth blossoming in his chest. He had friends. A family, not by blood, but by choice. He glanced at Kakashi, remembering the first time he'd reached for that masked, unreachable figure so long ago. Kakashi. You think my dad would be proud? Kakashi turned, his voice steady. Your father gave everything for this village. But what he'd be proudest of is this. That you never stopped believing in others. That you became a bridge, not a weapon. You've changed more than yourself, you've changed all of us. Naruto's eyes stung, but he grinned through the tears. Guess you taught me well, huh? Kakashi ruffled his hair. It was a team effort. A soft breeze stirred the leaves, sunlight catching the dust in the air. For a heartbeat, Naruto felt as if he could see his parents smiling down from the faces on the stone. He stood, brushing off his pants, determination settling over him like a mantle. There's still a lot to do. More battles, more exams, more people to protect. But I'm ready. This time, I'm not afraid. Kakashi stood too, his own shadow long beside Naruto's. You don't have to face any of it alone. They walked down together, two figures, student and teacher, son and father in all but name, moving from the monument into the waking heart of the village. Behind them, the sun rose higher, lighting the path ahead. In the shadow of old wounds and the light of new hope, Naruto stepped forward, not as a demon vessel, not just as a shinobi, but as a legacy reborn. And Konoha, at last, looked at him not with fear or pity, but with pride, knowing that as long as boys like Naruto and men like Kakashi walked its streets, the village would endure. The future stretched before them, unwritten, uncertain, but theirs to claim together. And as the day began, Naruto smiled, the world wide open at his feet. Thanks for listening. I do hope you enjoyed it. If you want the next part of this video, like, subscribe and comment down below and turn on the bell notification, and also check out other videos that I have created and enjoy. See you in the next video. Peace.